afternoon, good night, depending on the time of the day you're watching this. Because, as you well know, this is not a show about comics. That's a lie. This is about time traveling. We do science here. Through the wormhole that is my house, in a good sense, I hope, we get to the other side of the wormhole that is our friends, our guests' side of the science. Thingamajingy. So with us today is Mr. My dear family friend genius, Mr. Greg Capullo. How are you?
I'm doing all right, David. I'm getting a little. I'm not used to. I'm used to staying home all the time because it's sort of the nature of my business. But at least I would get breaks and go out to shows, and I'm really missing that. I can't go out to a restaurant. That's fine. But those breaks to go out to the shows and meet the fans that are the reason I do what I do, and see they're appreciative of what I do, and I'm not just alone in my room working, but now I am just alone in my room working. I don't have that connection, which always re-energizes me. I go to the shows and hug and joke and take pictures, and then I go home and, I have more purpose in my heart again going, doing it for all those people out there. And so, yeah, really missing the convention circuit. It's starting to get to me. I haven't left really my house very many times since March. And so those shows, it's starting to wear on me. I can't wait to get some normality back into the world and see the fans again. I miss it quite a bit.
It'll happen this year.
I hope so. I'm waiting for the vaccine. I'm waiting for the vaccine. I have asthma. I've had my whole life, and it's very well under control. But anytime I've ever gotten a flu or something, it affects me in 4 hours stuff, and it's not pleasant. So I really don't want to get this one, and I know some people got it, and it just doesn't want to go away. For some people, it no effects at all. And other people, it's just they can't get rid of it. It's just dragging on and bringing them down. So I need that vaccine before I go back to the shows.
Absolutely. We all do. As I didn't start the usual way I start, but I'm going to do it. Allow me this 2 minutes, Greg, because I always do this and I forgot today.
Okay.
To all of you out there, this is important, and I know Greg's going to support me, and he's more dangerous than I am, so listen to him. Guys, wear your fucking mask.
Yes, please.
Let me repeat again, and not in polite terms, because you don't deserve anything else. Wear your fucking mask. The mask is not meant to protect you. It's meant to protect others from you. That's why we wear the mask. It can protect you, yes, but that's not the fucking point. The point is we have to protect others. We have to save lives.
The sad thing for me is because my son works in the ER, my oldest son, and so he sees the cases, and he's shoving the tubes down their throat and watching people drown in their own blood. He sees what the X-rays look like, So I just politely said, please, if not for yourself, do it for others. And man, I got attacked on Twitter, and I'm not ashamed. I tell people, to go fuck off, and I block them. It doesn't matter to me. My generation a little bit thicker skinned, but I just couldn't believe, me just, saying something that, because I actually care about other people, and I would get attacked for it. I found that pretty disappointing, but what are you going to do,
Absolutely. And that's the other part of my rant. As I always say, if you think your freedom is more important than anybody else's safety, because that's the end point here. Caring about others, as Greg said. Please leave this channel now, because I don't want you here. Your freedom is not as important as everybody's lives. And here we care about people's lives. We are that weird.
Like I said, it makes a difference when you have family and friends who are involved in the medical business.
Absolutely.
And they're telling you what's happening, and they're experiencing it and suffering through it themselves. And, it makes it all the more personal,
Absolutely. My niece, Paloma's niece, Monica, she works in the ICU. And she's 22, she's vocational, and she kept asking for more shifts. Yeah. Every time we were telling her mother, and you need to rest. She was like, no, I want to save lives.
Yeah.
And we were seeing, at the beginning, as you know, because of your son, how badly protected they were. They were using anything they could. So anytime I hear that, it's like, guys, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Or go to a hospital, check out what's happening. It's
the
other day there was a guy on TV who recorded himself in Spain, going to a hospital and telling them it's all a lie. You're making it up. I'm coming here to show it, to show your lie in a hospital. And I was like,
Yeah.
I admire doctors and nurses so much, because if I were in their position, I wouldn't just be talking to the guy and saying, yeah. Wait, I'm going to call the cops. No, I
Yeah.
could be like, it's my
Yeah, I
friend.
understand. I understand.
But
Yeah.
anyway, let's.
Anyway. You
Hold
know
on.
what? The thing is, you can only control your own actions, really. So at the end of the day, I do the best I can for, myself and for people, strangers, everybody. I just, I can only control what I do. And
Absolutely.
at the end of the night, you have to be content with that. You don't control others. You can only control your own actions. So
Yeah, and try to teach and try to be understanding, etc. That's what we can do. That's fair. So, aside of conventions, my name is Victor Frankenstein. Nice to meet you. This is my routine. This is my syringe. So I just popped two into you. You're free.
okay.
It's over. So what's the first thing that you've been saying for 6 months to your amazing wife? The moment this ends, this is the first thing we're gonna do. What would it be?
Geez, for me, well, let me think about that. I guess we do something for our 10-year anniversary. She always wanted me to take her to Venice for our 10 year, because we got married at the Venetian in Las Vegas, and we rode the gondola there. But so we always said, oh, maybe our 10 year we'll do that, but we kind of got derailed here. So I think if we can do it, and I'd like to take her to Venice. At the very least, I'd like to take her to a restaurant, anything. But my goal is to do something extra special and catch up for our 10-year anniversary.
Mm-hmm. And what would be the meal that you're craving for those months? The same,
You know what?
I'm gonna, or it's just anything in a restaurant. I just want to go to a restaurant.
It's not the meal. It's the atmosphere and the enjoyment, and seeing other people enjoying themselves. Couples together and friends and everything. Just that whole atmosphere. I'm like marooned. We're all marooned right now. And but yeah, fortunately, Jamie and I like each other. So and she's used to being around me all the time because I work at home and I'm here all the time. So, but we like each other, and so that makes a big difference, because we'll hear about these couples going crazy, and that the quarantine together during the pandemic has led to divorces and fighting and everything. We're going, we're okay. We like each other.
Wait. You and Jamie have been talking to Paloma? She told you.
Yeah, no. Jamie and I get along great. We're best friends. So that helps a lot, being cooped up. The tougher one is our youngest one, Jackson. He's 19 now, and
19 already, Jackson.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my God.
But being pulled away from his friends, because we quarantine. I have asthma and I can't take the risks, but he's really cool about it. But I'm sure it wears on him. I mean, and
absolutely, it's 19, and they were talking today on. I was listening to a psychologist, and she was literally saying people is complaining about the kids and some parties they have, and people is not taking care of the other side, because for a teenager, for 18-20-year-old, psychologically this is killing them. They need the air, they need to breathe.
Yeah, and especially some of his friends have gotten together, and that's all the more. There's my friends doing it, and but he's really cool, man, and he's really about the family, and he loves us, and he's enduring and fighting the good fight, and it'll end, but it does suck. I mean, the whole graduation was weird. It happened at a drive-in theater, and you had to stay in your car, and if you left the car, you had to have the mask, and the teachers and principal and everything, they spoke up on the big movie screen, and it's just his mask has their class, their graduating class, and I used to bust his balls all the time, because my generation, Christ Almighty, we had adventure after adventure, and now kids get their adventures in front of a gaming console, And I said, man, I go, you got to know stories to tell, you know what I mean? When you're growing up, man, what stories have you got? I once played Xbox for 17 hours straight and ate 4 bags of chips and, a gallon of soda. What I mean? What's your stories? But now you got a few stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now you got a few stories.
I was making jokes with, Erin. One day she saw the scar I have here, and she was asking, Daddy, what happened? Like, this is a story you will never tell. And so we're like, why? because this is somebody he threw a stone to me. Like, what? Yeah, we were playing, and a friend threw a stone to me. It's like,
Yeah.
and you were bleeding. Yes. It's like, why do they say? Because you play with the iPad.
That's right.
So you're safe. I wasn't safe, and you were saying, we were climbing on trees. We were, just throwing things at each other, doing the most crazy stuff. And now it's like, no, kids can do that. That's dangerous. Like, what? We're alive.
Yeah, I'm lucky to be alive, man. But if they were doing what I was doing, I'd be just beside myself. You know what I mean? We used to hop trains. Because we had train tracks by my house. So one of the things we would like to do is get on the train when it stopped, and then keep going until it go faster and faster. The bravest guy jump off last. Except the bravest guy fell into all the granite gravel and stuff, got all cut up and marred up, and be like, I won. You know? So we're jumping trains, getting cut up and stuff like that, hanging off bridges. Shit, I used to shoot my friends with pellet guns. We'd have Roman candle fights. I mean, just go crazy, you know what I mean? But now, they're nice and safe in the basement, you know?
Yeah. Did you ever do the train is coming? Who is the last one who jumps on the tracks?
Well, we didn't jump in front of trains. We
did that.
Yeah. No. The closest I had, we were on a trestle bridge over a river, and a train came unexpectedly, and most of us got out of the way except my buddy Dean, and he had to actually hang from the bridge the whole time until the train passed. We were like, "Oh my God, Dean's gonna die!" Ooh. So yeah, some hair raising shit. Hair rose right off my head. Yeah. So.
Yes, I know. New generation, we were fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That's why
it was great fun. I wouldn't trade a day of it, and I got a lot of great stories and some scars to go with them. And but we're living and telling the story, so we made it. It's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, why? The most important question ever. Masochism aside, why did you decide comics was your thing? That of all the options you have as a storyteller, as an artist, in a way, why did you say comics is my life? This is what I want to do forever.
Yeah, well, first of all, when I decided, I sure didn't realize how hard of a job it is. I mean, I honest to God, I knew I wanted to do it when I was 8 years old. I just knew it. And at the time, I was looking at comic books, and I was also looking at Mad Magazine, and there was even some book called Cartoons, which was for motorheads, and all comic illustration kind of stuff. And I don't know, man. I was just taken in by it. And by the age of 8, I just go, I want to do this, and at the time it could have been Mad Magazine, didn't matter. I knew I wanted to be an illustrator in that kind of an atmosphere. And that was it, man. And the bug was in me early. I mean, there was a character in Mad Magazine called Don Martin, was the cartoonist, and his characters were these floppy feet with hung over nose and crinkly hair, kind of clownish looking characters. And I used to draw those. And in second grade, they had me teaching the 5th graders how to draw this character up on the blackboard. They had me on a box. And so it was always there, Mm-hmm. And, matter of fact, the nun was my kindergarten teacher. She's still alive, and ran into her not too long ago. And she was saying, I knew in kindergarten that you were special. She goes, you were always, besides being super smart, says, at the end of this test that we give the kids, we'd say, draw a man. And at that age, kids will draw usually a circle with like things, arms and legs out of it. She goes, but you drew like a perfect man at age 5. So she goes, I knew that you had something special. So I don't know. It was just, always a spark that was in me. And at 8 years old, I knew. And then in high school, I started to go down to the Marvel offices, which is something you could do back then. You certainly can't do it now after 9/11 happened. The whole world changed. But at the time, I wouldn't even have an appointment. And I would get on the train or drive down to New York with my portfolio and get on the elevator, go up to the receptionist and say, I came from Schenectady, New York. Is there anybody who can look at my stuff? And they would always get on the phone and somebody would come out. Even Jim Shooter came out and talked to me one time, and he was the editor-in-chief at the time. And I went down there several times. It was something I knew I wanted to do, and I just kept pursuing it, and then I was working as a bellhop at a hotel, Ramada Inn in Schenectady at the time, and I worked there like 7 years. And a friend of mine who also, Kevin Conrad, he was an inker for a short while. He went to art college. I didn't. I got kicked out of high school in senior year, and so yeah, I wasn't going to college. And so he had gone to art college, and he had gotten a portfolio together, and he started doing advertising locally. And so he said to me, "What are you going to do? You're going to carry bags, for the rest of your life? What are you going to do? And so he kind of kicked me in the ass, and he says, get your portfolio together, and I'll bring you around to the agencies that I work for. So I asked my mother, I don't know how old I was, I was a young man. I said, can I quit my job and I'll just focus on my art. And that's what I did. So every year, every day I drew for at least 4 hours a day. And I honed my skills, and I put a portfolio together, and he brought me around to the agencies, and they started giving me his work. So oops, so I go, oh, that sucks. And he was a little mad. But what I did then is, because I was working with Todd, and I kind of dragged him into McFarland's, and he did some inking. He never got to the level where he was good enough to pencil, but he became, a competent inker and got some business there. So yeah, it was just always in me, always what I wanted to do. And Kevin Conrad kind of gave me the kick while I was getting a little lazy. And the rest is, as they say, history.
Mm-hmm. And when did you realize it was as hard and as it is, and the discipline it needs?
Well, my first professional gig at a Marvel, one of my first gigs, I don't think it was the very first one, but it was one of the very first things, which was one of the what if issues that I did. I think it involved Iron Man. Excuse me. I worked 48 hours straight to meet the end of the deadline. and I remember seeing they fixed it, post, but I had left an arm off of a guy. and I remember distinctly, I had a blackboard drawing, it took the last couple pages, and my body was like whimpering just uncontrollably. It was like my body just going I just so worn out in 48 hours straight. So, I mean, it kind of set in that, yeah, you're flipping through and it looks magical and everything like that, but there's not really any magic behind it. It's all a team of people doing a lot of hard work all the time. So,
and by the end of the day, it's one of the things that shown that you really want to be a professional artist is the amount of time you spend on it, right? I guess that you get this question a million times, is how can I get to be a pro? And the only real answer is keep working, right?
That's really it. People want shortcuts, and there is no shortcuts. I mean, you gotta grind, and you should never stop grinding, because obviously I became professional, been doing it for 3 decades or something, and I could just stop trying, I guess, and just settle in. But I mean, I don't think that's in the nature of anybody who's really creative, because it'd be like just writing the same music over again or drawing the same exact picture over again. I mean, I think always you want to try and get a little bit better or do something in a little bit of a different way. I mean, so that's what keeps me in it, is that even though it's getting harder, the older I'm getting, it's getting harder to grind. I still have the drive to try and go, what different way can I do this thing? Can I, what kind of storytelling thing? What kind of drawing? What kind of, so that's what keeps you in it, right? Because there's always something new. And the moment that any creative person says, oh, that's it, well, then you got to quit, because then it's just a stagnant pool of water, and that's just rotten. You know what I mean? So once the water stops moving, I'll get out entirely. But right now, I still have some current going through the water. So.
Absolutely. And there's also a part of it that is based on your own urge to tell stories, right? I mean, when I was talking to J.R. Romita Jr., well, you know who J.R. is.
Yeah, of course.
And when I was talking to John, he was telling me that the way he realized what he wanted to do is when he was a kid, he was checking his father's stuff. And he said, being a kid, it's like, I'm never going to be as good as this guy. Never. I should stop trying. But I could become the best storyteller in the business. So that's why I'm going to focus on storytelling. Telling a story has to be my forte.
Yeah.
And
he draws pretty well.
I could say he's, if not the best, one of the best storytellers in the business by far.
Yeah.
So for you, it was also the need to tell stories. You needed to take them out of your chest, and that need is still there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the most fun part of it. It's not the actual drawings. Actually, the drawing part is the more stressful of the two. I mean, I like sitting down and reading a script or a plot and going, how am I going to tell this story? Because there's a million different ways. If you give one script to 5 different movie directors, you're going to get a different looking film from all of them, even though they all use the exact same starting point, because at some point your vision and your voice and the way you see it will unfold in a different way than someone else. And to me, that's the most fun part of it. Like I said, sometimes I get stressed out in the drawing because I feel like there's a pressure to make it a certain level, and the time is ticking. And so to me, the fun part is the storytelling, what camera angles, how many panels, how am I going to pace this thing out, the acting, how am I, what expressions, what body language, all that stuff. There's the real thrill for me. I love that part of it more than any other part.
Yeah. How much do you need with Scott or with any other writer? But Scott is your brother in arms almost, and Millar and any of the others. But how much do you need to just sit down and tell them, I need a breather? I need not a breather. Sorry, I need a space, because there's the full script, and then it's the Marvel way. But there's something in the middle, which is, yes, you can tell me anything you want, but I need space to tell it my way. How important is that for you?
Well, for me, it's real important because I mean, I was raised, and it might have, and I'm sure it's different, but when I was raised at Marvel, they worked entirely off a plot.
Yep.
And so I was trained to take like a 6-page plot, of evocative writing, you know what I mean? But break that all out and pace it all out myself and direct it. And then that would go back to the writer, who would then script it after they saw what visuals came in. So that's sort of my training. And then I worked with Todd, and Todd, we worked probably as close to Stanley Kirby relationship. Whereas Todd would at some points be so loose, he'd say, okay, give me 3 pages of Sam and Twitch. They're going to be talking about this. I don't care, where you put them. They could be under a bridge in New York, and maybe he'd say something like, "And give me a little room because I got a lot to say over there." Every once in a while, he gets specific, and but he gave me a lot of freedom, and sometimes I would record it on a micro cassette recorder. Sometimes, and I still have them. Me, jotting down notes of our conversation, and I'd illustrate from that. So and then I went to Scott, who was like full script and trying to control every aspect. And he's not that way anymore. And even Todd told Scott, he says, if you want the best from Greg, get out of his way. And the more I did with Scott, the more he pulled back, and he still writes the same way. He tells me he still writes the same way, but because he needs to for his own, but then he'll remove chunks before he shows it to me. So what I get is less restrictive, you know. So and it's funny because I always just tell him, a couple things. I'd say, you don't get paid by the word. That's number one. You don't get paid by the word. And then I would try and encourage him. I said, you got kids, you got a wife, you're gonna go spend time with. Let me do the heavy lifting, And so as the walls started to close in on him during the last project here, right now I go, all right, from pages 6 to 20, you pages from 2 to 5, it became like these big blocks. Okay, here you figured out, and it's like, okay, that's cool. I could do that, and you go bounce the kid on your knee.
Yeah, that's like a Stan and Gene Colan. When Gene Colan used to tell me, I got from Stan, and it said Captain America and Baron Zemo fight, 5 pages.
Yeah,
that was the plot. And then when somebody else tried to tell Gene the opposite, oh, you have to do this and that, Gene automatically did it the Marvel way. And people complain at DC that, hey, he's not following instructions. And Gene was like, no, it's not that I don't want it. It's that's the only way I know how to do it.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely it was a learning curve. But like I said, Scott, because I said early on to my wife, who wives are defensive, and she's like, and in the beginning, Scott was really, like, who's this asshole? She didn't call him an asshole. She's not like that, but she's like, who does he think he is? And So I said, it's cool, and what I said is, it's not cool for me to expect this guy to completely change the way he's used to working. That'd be wrong. Just in the same way it'd be wrong for him to expect that of me. Yeah. And so we've met on common ground, and it's still, all these years, it's been more than a decade we've been working together, and it still evolves a little bit, and mostly in the fact that he gives me more and more room, Yeah. And he's gotten comfortable with it, and he says he enjoys it too. So Scott and I, and the great thing about Scott and I, which I think helped us, is we seem to have a similar storytelling vision, the way we see things unfolding. And a lot of times, he'll go, I was thinking this, and I'm thinking that exact same thing, or I'll turn in something and goes, that's exactly how I thought that might go. So, so that once you have sort of like, oh, we're in the same car going to the same destination, it makes it a little bit easier to just rely on each other and to trust each other. And our whole team with Jonathan Glapion and FCO, we have that. Nobody's in each other's business going, can you do that? Can you do that? Can you change that? And now when you do that, you're never going to 100% be satisfied. You know what I mean? Yeah. Scott may do something and I'm not 100% satisfied. I might turn it in. He might not be 100% satisfied. Jonathan might not think things exactly like I thought, and FCO might, but you get overall better than you would if everybody's trying to micromanage. And so everybody just stays out of each other's way. And sometimes you get pleasantly surprised. You go, wow, I never thought it could look that cool, or I never saw those colors in here. And I just said to FCO the other day, I go, because somebody put up some Japanese fans made some anime of the Death of the Family stuff, which was really cool. And it reminded me of like FCO's genius. Like I did this close up, heavily shadowed Joker head. And when FCO gave it back, the eyes are two different colors. Now, certainly never envisioned that to be to look like that. And yet I went, oh my God, that's so goddamn creepy. It was brilliant. So that's an example of just stay out of each other's way. If you're working together, you're doing so for a reason. It's because you like what that person does, and you respect their work and you admire their work. And so why would you want to then try and impede their work? And I've gone to defense with editorial. They're like, oh, those colors or something. And I'll just say, you know what? Here's the deal is if you try and see, you go through and I don't really like that. Okay, well, once you start telling somebody that, a creative person, you're going to block them up, because now they're going to be worrying and second guessing themselves. Yeah. And so, okay, great. You change the shade of that yellow on that panel, but now you stifled this guy's creativity, because now they're second guessing themselves, and the fluidity's gone and the creativity is bound up. So I go, just shut up. Just let it go. Just let it go, because look at all the wonderful things. You know what I mean? Look at all the great surprises. You're going to worry because, I wish that was desaturated by 20%. Let it go. You know what I mean? You got to look at the big picture, and the big picture.
That bit is not important, and it's going to make the creator second guess himself or herself at all times, which in the long term, is the biggest mistake possible, right? Damaging,
yeah.
Yeah.
So I just know, everybody go for it, man. And when they turned it in, most of the time I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm like, wow, I didn't think it could be that great.
Yeah, and also there's the thing that I always say, that, for example, in your case and Scott, you've gotten to a point where it's not anymore Scott and Greg. It's like you guys have created a third entity, which is the final creator, right? You are so in sync that sometimes do you know where his ideas start and yours end, and vice versa, or is just sometimes?
Yeah,
I don't know who thought about this, but it just works.
I think in the beginning, he would try and kind of keep score a little bit, and it's like, but after so much time, you're right, it kind of bleeds together. I don't keep track. Some stuff is his ideas, some is my ideas, changing what he gave me, or whatever. It is what it is, and it just comes out, and I have to say, because it's still. I don't fully understand it, but the fan base that Scott and I have is so incredibly loyal and strong,
Yep.
and supportive of us, and have long standing with us to do so for more than a decade. I mean, Jesus Christ, I could be nothing but so grateful, because it's something you can't manufacture. I mean, you can't go, well, we're going to put this team together, like a boy band, and go, oh, they're all good-looking kids who can dance really nice and sing pretty good, and the people will love them. It just doesn't work that way. And the fact that, Bob Harris is the mastermind behind sticking Scott and I together, which at first blush you'd go, that's oil and water. But for whatever reason, God, I'm grateful for it, man. People are still supporting us after all this time. So it's remarkable. And so, yeah, Scott and I have a lot we want to do together going forward. Create our own stuff is what we're doing right now.
Yeah. I just can't stop seeing you FCO, John, and Scott as a boy band now.
Yeah. Well, I like to say we're like the Beatles, and I'm, because
but let's not say who's Ringo here.
Right. Well, listen, Ringo's valuable, and I mean he was valuable, but I mean we're a close knit operating unit, and we all get along pretty well with each other, and we all trust each other, and together I think we make a pretty decent looking book.
Mm-hmm. You were talking before about define the limits of storytelling on your own head. Like what can I do that I haven't done in 3 decades or whatever time. Because you look younger, as every day you look younger, just so you know. So, what is for you the most?
By the way, David, thank you very much.
What?
The money's on the way. The money's on the way for the compliment.
Oh yeah, this is just 5,000. No, sorry. We're saying, what's the most unique thing about comics storytelling for you, compared to any other?
Yeah. Well, I would think that because you're not limited by format. In other words, like say you went and you wanted to do storyboard work for, it could be television commercials, it could be for, the motion pictures. The thing is, you're limited by, a rectangle, because that's the format of a screen, both TV and movie now. And so you're locked into that. Whereas with comic books, you can manipulate the panel sizes. You can make them tall verticals. You can do all kinds of stuff that accentuate the storytelling. And, one of the early lessons that the Marvel editors gave to me when they were explaining that to me was they go like, say, for instance, you got a guy falling from a tall building. All right. So obviously you've seen that in movies and everything. All right. Guy falls from a tall building, and you see it, and they use multiple shots, and it looks wow. All right. But in comics, you could do a tall vertical that is from literally the top to the bottom of the panel, skinny, and it accentuates that falling off the building and how far he's going down. So in this way that you can manipulate the format, you can accentuate all of your storytelling ideas with the panel layouts and their shapes. It's so that's to me the most fun and thrilling and different aspect of the storytelling that's there in comics.
Have I ever told you my Einstein thing with comics?
Your Einstein thing? No, what's your Einstein thing?
I think over beers, or not. What we were to do? Oh, sorry. No, I always say that comics is the only art form that can defy Einstein's theory of relativity.
Oh.
Let me explain why. Movies, the arrow of time always forward. In a novel, same thing, everything. But in comics, as you just said, no. In comics, you just say, I'm going to have 20 pages happening at the same second, or I'm going to just jump back and forth, or I'm going to control time because of the shape of the panels.
That's
so
true.
By the end of the day, in the others, you can do flashbacks, yes. But it always feels out of place. But in comics, it feels as part of the language to just move in space and time in any way you want.
That's interesting, yeah. That's interesting. And probably, yeah, true. Are you there? Oh.
I'm here. I was expecting.
All right, I was supposed to give you more compliments. That's brilliant, David.
No, stop. I was expecting the other way around. You're saying you're crazy. You're fucking nuts.
No. I understand exactly what you're saying.
And continuing with that, for you, as a real music lover, if I tell you comics storytelling, what is it? It's a symphony bar, opera? Is it rock and roll or is it jazz?
Well, the way I draw it, better be rock and roll. Because that shit courses through my veins. Yeah, no, I hope that, you know, my metal attitude comes through. You know what I mean? It's like the stuff I was raised on. I mean, especially like Judas Priest was one of my first favorite metal bands. And if you listen to songs like The Sentinel and stuff, I mean, that's comic books, man. All that visual storytelling. And, you know, you go to a Maiden concert, you had Eddie up on stage dancing, you know, the Eddie, their mascot. You just go, this is all comic books, man. Metal is very comic books. And so I don't know. I mean, and that's kind of who I am. So I'm assuming that it bleeds out on the page in some form or fashion. But, you know, you can never really see your own work. I mean, it's you just can't, you know. I can't see my work the way other people see my work. So, but I hope that it comes through.
Yeah, but I absolutely agree with what you just said. You know, many people compares comic books with movies, and I always say no, comic books are music.
Yeah.
You know, this is a superhero comic. You go up, you go down, you go out. That's a symphony.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, that's a rock and roll song. Or, as you said, it's metal. You know, sometimes you just go hardcore. And sometimes something that you also can do only in comics effectively, I think, is how important it is for you to use silence. You know, that moments when you give the reader the reflection time. So then you go, boom, you go crazy again.
Well, you know, I think that is important because, you know, now in the 90s, most people just put the pedal to the metal full time, you know, and it was always bam, 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 bam. But you know what? It loses the effectiveness that way. And I relate it to music again in like the guitar solo. I mean, if the whole song is a guitar solo, well, then, you know, the guitar solo is no longer special, you know. And so there's times where you have to, you know, lay back so that guitar solo has the impact. So it'd be like if I here, it's also like driving a car. Okay, so if I grab you and I say, David, let's go in a car with, you know, one of my fast cars, and we get in the car, and I just right away I take us for a very fast ride. It's just one speed, top speed. All right, you're great. You go, wow, that's a fast car. But if I take you out of the garage and we go putt, 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 putt for a little while, and then I go, let's go to the highway, and I pick it up the speed, and you're comfortable, then all of a sudden I hit it, and you wham, and give you some whiplash, then that has impact.
Yes.
You know, much more dramatic than if I just took you out and started going full bar. So you definitely need that oscillation so to make the impact. So you try and quiet it down before your most impactful part so that, you know, so that they get that hit, whether it's a splash page or big ballsy action and a lot of detail or whatever, you know, however you're going to hit that gas, you know, you like to set that up so that it has the most impact.
Absolutely. And how important is the page turn for you?
It's, you know, it's one of the things that, you know, Marvel instilled that it's an important thing, you know, and things have changed a little bit, you know, because you're not dealing with ads, and now you have iPads and all these, you know, digital devices you could see, and things have changed a little bit. But yeah, Scott thinks about the page turn just as much as I do, and we try and give that surprise, that element of surprise. And sometimes you can't paste it, and you know, and it's a facing page, and that's not the most desirable. You would always like to have the page turn to be the whoa, you know, that's definitely always the goal.
Mm-hmm. And also, when we were talking about music, so I just remember when you're working, do you need absolute silence, or you have music with you, or it depends on the part of the process, meaning layouts? No, silence.
Well, no, when I'm laying out, I like complete silence and nobody bothering me, because that's where I'm trying to get immersed. And I don't like any distraction at all. And a lot of times when I'm drawing, I don't want anybody walking in on me. My wife will come in and I'll put my pencil down. I'll be like, yes, you know, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry to bother you. And I'm like, you're not bothering me. And because I get immersed. And so when someone pulls me out of there, now I have to like, okay, reset and get back into that environment. And that's, you know, not the most optimum thing. But with music, sometimes I would listen to music. But most of the time, I'll tell you what, the music happens here. And so what's great about that is if it's a particular scene, that particular song or section of a song even will play in a loop. You know what I mean? So it's my brain pulls from my library of music and it punches up. I don't need speakers. It's all the speakers are here. I'll hear the songs, the guitar riffs, sections, or entire songs play.
Yeah, that's fascinating because when I was talking to Coipel, to Olivier, he was telling me, of course, the same thing about the silence, which is common in most artists. Like layouting means silence because you need the full concentration.
Mm-hmm.
But then he was telling me, depending on the phase of the work, then he goes, okay, I'm inking or I'm finishing or I'm coloring, as he does with the covers. He puts some music that fits the mood, meaning I need hardcore action, so I'm going to go Lord of the Rings, epic, like in movies. Or then I need emotion, so I'm going to go with classic music. And it's fascinating that you don't need to actually have the speakers. It's in your head. So the soundtrack goes directly from your brain to the page, which I think is a lot more effective, right?
Absolutely. And there's also an emotional library that, I draw on, which is one thing that I think benefits storytelling is living life, because I have a bigger library to draw upon than I did when I was a young man, right? Because you have more experiences under your belt, and it's all in your library. And I remember in drawing a scene in Reborn that I did with Mark Millar, and Bonnie is an old woman, is fearful of dying, and so she's all distraught, and I'm drawing this old woman crying. So I go into the memory banks and I pull out my grandmother crying, and how awful it would feel to watch this old woman cry who I loved so much. And I have to be careful talking about it now because I'll cry, because I could remember her face and her tears and her pain. And so you draw upon those things. And so when I was drawing that panel, I was crying. I was bringing my grandmother to that story. So you have all this this deep well of emotions and experiences and music, all of these things, moods that you've encountered, things that you remember. It could be a scent on the breeze, the sun on your skin. All of these things can trigger the right emotion and headset for whatever drawings you're working on. And it's there for everybody to tap into. They just have to be aware they have a library. Let me tap into this thing and use it. Don't be so mechanical that you're just going, this is the approach, this is the approach. Draw upon your own life, and go. I remember that feeling, or I remember that thing, They could pull out from anywhere. I remember Todd loving this one scene I did with Sam and Twitch. They were in a bar, and there's a bowl of something, some munchies on the table, and Sam, being the big overweight cloddish kind of guy, he smashes into the bowl, and the bowl's kind of like tilted up and some is flying out. And, he always spilled food. Well, I had a very close friend who was very overweight and very cloddish. And, and so I drew upon those memories of how he would grab into the food, and so we all have these libraries in us, and it can really, if you plug into it and tap into it, it aids your storytelling, to draw upon that stuff.
And that's also a big part of what you said. Sometimes kids, I always say, power without control means nothing. And like the old Pirelli Carl Lewis had. And sometimes they ask me, and it's like, you gotta learn to walk before you try to run. Many times that experience, as you just said, that's the pond where you just take everything out of the pond unconsciously, because you don't even think about it. It's just there.
Exactly.
And it comes out when you need it, right? And when you're trying, you just don't have that pool of information.
Right. So, I can't write about things that I've not experienced, not convincingly anyway. So it's the same with drawing. The more you've experienced, and I guess I've always been a people person. Fans who met me at shows will tell you I'm definitely a people person, and so all the more I've always paid attention to people, the way they talk, the way they stand, the way they sit, every aspect of people, because I love people so much. And so I have this vast library in my head, and it's been there for a long time. When I used to try and get into Marvel Comics, I had one editor turn to the other one, and after looking at my work, and he said, "This one can act." Well, because I pay attention to people, I pay attention to their behaviors and everything, and it's recorded. So yeah, it's all there. We all have eyes and ears to observe and listen, and we just gotta take the time to look at it. And I'll just this is a real aside, but it goes to speak about observation. Okay, so most people who like to draw, they're pretty good at drawing a face, right? Of all the parts, they're good at drawing a face. And why? Because all day long we're looking at each other's face, right? And usually people have a real tough time drawing feet. Why? because nobody's walking around all the time looking down while they're walking, looking at everybody's feet.
Yes.
But if you did that, you'd be an expert at drawing feet and you would suck at drawing faces. So the idea I'm saying is, understand that all of your observations that you make on a day-to-day basis all aid you in your storytelling, visual approach, whatever. And so to be aware of that. And I'll tell you one thing further is even, and I got this tip out of a book, I'm sure many years ago. It said that wherever you go, if you don't have a pad and pencil and you see something interesting, imagine yourself drawing it, because your brain will record it in the same way as if you had a pencil and paper. You will still get the same benefit. So when you go to draw that thing, you will have already drawn it. Even though you didn't have graphite and paper, you have drawn it because you imagined yourself drawing it. So
because you triggered it. You triggered the reaction. Yeah.
So that's one of the things I would do as well. I would go through the streets of New York City and just look at the buildings and imagine what, drawing those water towers or drawing these things, making those observations and pretending that I'm drawing them. And it goes a long way to improving your drawing. And so the observation is the thing. So don't look at people's faces, look at their hands when they're talking to you and things.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. That one of the things that makes you special and so distinct as an artist and such a genius is that most artists, as you said, they focus on the common things. I need to do this and this and that as in a superhero comic, blah, blah, blah. But a hand, in your case, in Greg Capullo's case, people, I'm talking about him now, and this is one of the biggest compliments I can give him, is one hand drawn by Greg Capullo can tell you a lot more than a full body for most other artists in the business.
Oh man, thank you, man. That's embarrassing, but thank you.
But I've told you this in person. You know what I mean? It's just the subtleties that you have as an artist. But
yeah,
you see the strong guy, really close to people, as you said, really open. But they don't see the other side, the really emotional side you have, which is, you just mentioned your grandma, and I always look at the posturing, of the people. They are natural. They're real people. Those hands are real. They feel real.
That's the goal. I mean, that's the goal. And another thing that young artists can do that I did early in my career is I would go downtown with some sunglasses and a sketch pad, and I would just do quick gestural drawings of people as they were milling about, doing the shopping or waiting for the bus or whatever they were doing. And that's the way also you can understand people and how they carry themselves and what that means, because a woman who's waiting for the bus and she's very tired is going to have a very different posture than some young guy who's just bouncing out of the gym and he's got his chest pumped up from a good workout. So I mean, all these things, it's all the human experience, and it's all there for all of us to marvel at and absorb and take in, and it's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah. And it's also one of the first things you learn when you're an artist, is that human bodies never stay completely still. Never.
No.
And that's when new artists, you show them that guy looks still. It's like he's not moving. It's just like a photograph. And they are like, people stay still. And you are like, no, never. That never happens. Human bodies are capable of being.
We've all seen people's vacation pictures. And the worst ones are where the person is standing in front of whatever it is that they're taking where they're vacation. And they're like this. Yeah. We've all seen that picture.
Yes.
And you go, what a horrible picture. All you need to do to make that picture better was shift your weight, put a hand on the hip, something that shows the body's capable of movement. Instead of what is that? So the body is always in motion, except when you're making a bad photograph. And so it's weight distribution. It could be just one. The weight is more on one hip than the other. That's motion. Everything. There's something happening. There's a slump. Something is in motion. A hand on the hip. Something. And so when you draw, you should bring that life. You could be even the hair blowing in the wind. If you only have a head to work with. I mean, there should always be motion and stillness.
Yeah, that's what we said before. It's never still, and the subtlety, that small detail. Right. You're going to take which is the other biggest science, I think, of a comic artist, is knowing where to take the eye of the reader. Right.
Yeah.
And so if you do that with that subtlety, with that the hair blowing with the wind, you're telling the reader, in a way, correct me if I'm wrong, I want you to look there.
Yeah, and you're also creating, again, like I was saying, the memory that you have of the way sun feels on your skin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so when you add these atmospheric things, people relate to them, not even on a conscious level. They just go, yeah, my hair is blown in the wind. I mean, my hair used to blow in the wind. Your hair used to blow in the wind. We have a vague remembrance of what that was like, But yeah. So I mean, when you add these things, it just makes it all the more real to people. And it's all on a subconscious level, right? Because we all are part of the human condition, and we all relate to the same things, whether we admit it or not. And we're all affected by these visual cues. When it's windy, when it's hot, right? You could draw that stuff, and that adding atmosphere is just one more layer of realism that helps to sell the reality.
And that's also that you do amazingly well, which is something for young creators again. Sorry guys, you're gonna kill me today. You're gonna hate me because of all the blah, 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 blah I'm doing today. But it's many times they think that over rendering is good, and I always say no, it's not. Less is more, and use to your benefit something that is called, and you do this amazingly well, that's called pattern recognition, which is you don't need to draw the full Batman. Just the ear and this cape. This shape is going to tell that's Batman. We don't need anything else. So how much do you use pattern recognition to your benefit?
Well, all right. So this kind of encompasses a lot. Okay, so in the 90s, detail was like a trademark, right? And everybody was trying to do more detail than the next guy. And I would, when I was working with Todd, right? So I got the idea, okay, so Todd wants more detail. So I draw a little more detail. And then he'd ink more detail on top. It's like, okay, wants more detail. So I add that level of detail. And he'd add more detail. And I look back at some of that stuff, and it's a bit over-rendered, it's, in my opinion. Now, the two things that I want to say about that is in one breath, fans, they get mesmerized, and they do like a lot of detail. A lot of them will go better drawing because there's a lot of detail, and we'll put that on the side. But the thing is, in my view, is people can use detail to cover up bad structure. Mm-hmm. Then the novice eye just sees all the detail and goes, wow, right? Not realizing that's a piece of shit jalopy with a cream paint job with pinstriping and flames on it, covering up that it's a jalopy. Whereas if you take a Ferrari off the assembly line before it's painted or anything, you go, that's a beautiful body right there. So, to me, the structure is the number one thing. And then detail, whether there's a lot or a little, that can also add to the storytelling and also the vibe. In other words, if I'm drawing Spawn in the alley with the bums and the trash, well, yeah, you want to be gritty and nasty, and so more detail is warranted. But say I'm drawing My Little Pony, you know what I mean? Certainly that would destroy a My Little Pony comic book if I were to do one. So there's also that genre specific, and then there's the vibe even within a story. If I'm drawing a scene with a couple cooking in their kitchen, and then I go off into Batman in an alley, well, there's going to be different levels of detail there. Mm-hmm. And now to speak to what you were saying about shape recognition, this sort of can apply. One of the things that was said to me when I was a kid trying to get in, and a Marvel editor had pointed to hieroglyphs in Egypt and said, you notice how you could tell the shape because, everything's broken down into a shape. So it's readable even in a silhouette form. Mm-hmm. And so now that's pretty much devoid of the detail aspect. So it's very important to have, as you said, the recognition there. And so that good structure and good recognition precede the detail. The detail is sort of the icing on the cake. Mm-hmm. So first you have to bake your cake, and you got to know when to put a lot of icing and when not to. And that's a learning experience because we're no longer in the 90s. And yes, there are people who are detail heads who just will love it, and God bless them. I like it too. It's cool. But I think about it in different terms that I did when I was in the 90s, which was simply doing it for the sake of doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was trying to go for, because back in that day was, as you said, that's what you have to do. That's you have to be detailed.
It's a trademark thing.
But after that, each was excuse me.
It was like a house style.
Yeah, exactly. And afterwards, everybody got in their own thing, in their own style, in their own direction. And by the end of the day, it's not even something that you pick, right? That you choose. It's that your art takes you in that direction, and it's not even conscious. You don't decide it, right?
Right. That is true. But again, I think I'm an oddball in the way that my style changes depending on what I'm working on. Not so much that somebody doesn't know that it's me drawing it, but the way I approach it is definitely different. The way I approached Reborn was radically different than I approached Spawn. Batman was different than I approached. I mean, they're you have to put the right flavor to the right. But like I said, My Little Pony, if I'm going to illustrate that, I'm going to illustrate it radically different than the way I'm drawing some other things. So I'm also, it's also the story itself and the characters themselves that influence my handling of that subject matter. So that's why to me, your style has to be fluid. Otherwise, you might not be able to fit so many things. And maybe I'm that way because I started in advertising and I made myself a good draftsman so that I could do many things so that I have more opportunities. And so the more versatile you are, obviously the more opportunities you can. Oh, you need a cartoony thing. Okay. Oh, you need a realistic tractor, for General Electric. Or okay. So maybe it's because I have those roots that I just whether consciously or subconsciously, I approach comics in that same way. So it's like, I don't go, this is the way I draw. I'm gonna have to do this exact same thing every single time. I sort of let the story and the characters help to dictate, just as you were saying, the art kind of takes you there. Well, for me, the characters and the genre also help to take me there.
Yeah, and you've been at, in the last, then Spawn, Creech, your own stuff with Todd. Then you moved to DC and did, all that stuff with Scott, the Batman, now Death Metal. In a gap there, you did Reborn with Mark. What is that you're itching to do now? Like crazy, after covering all those bases, because you've covered all the bases, you're like, you know what? Now I have an itch to do this. What's what you're dying to do now?
Retire.
You won't never do that.
I'm only halfway kidding that. I certainly don't want to keep working as hard as I've done for all these years. But I've written the Creech for the third part, which I just started to write when I was just before I took over Batman, and obviously I got sidelined. So I just finished scripting it up, and Scott said it's really good. And so I trust his opinion. He's not going to bullshit me. So I'm excited to do that. And Scott and I have co-created something that'll be coming. We're working on it. I'm working on it right now. I have the first script. I'm doing a lot of developmental drawings and some layouts. So those are the two things that are right on the docket next. Scott and I also have a lot of other ideas that are co-created with each other that we'd like to bring to light. But I think for me, knowing that, I don't know how many more years I have ahead of me with this stuff. I'm getting older. And so I want to do those two things, first. And then I said to Scott, I'd like to, whether together or separately, I'd like to go do some Marvel stuff, and maybe do some DC stuff. I'd like to still do some projects for both of those companies. I haven't done anything for Marvel in so long. And that was always my heart was Marvel Comics. I can't believe I ended up at DC for so long. So really, I was always a Marvel guy. I never even submitted to DC when I was trying to get in. So I would definitely like to do some stuff at Marvel. I've talked to those guys. CB's a good dude. We're friends. And so we'll probably do something, whether it's with Scott or a different writer. I'd like to do some Marvel characters. And I've loved Marvel characters. And I was in love with the Fantastic Four and so many others. I would love to get my hooks in. Not like an ongoing series. I'm sort of done with that. I just wanted to do projects. You know what I mean? Just like Metal was a project and Reborn was a project. That's all I really want to sign up to do. So my ideal thing would be I do these creator owns, get the Creech done, get the thing with Scott done, go do a Marvel thing or a DC thing, do another creator owned thing, do another Marvel DC, you know what I mean? And bounce around a little bit. Yeah. I think I'm too old to be stuck in one place. And you see my career, I tend to set down roots and stay for a long period of time. And at my age, I don't think it serves me well, because there's so much great stuff I'd like to do. And the longer I stay in one spot, the less opportunity I'm going to have to do those things.
That's true. That's true. But then that's amazing, because I was starting to think that you would say, you know what, I'm done with company owned. From now on, I'm just going to do I'm just going to create own. But I can hear CB on the other side or something watching this saying yes. Because how many years has he been asking?
For the first 10 years I left, they sent me an open contract that said I could come and do anything. So Marvel has been, very good in wanting me back for a long time. And I love Marvel. But the thing is, and I understand the mentality of certain creators who go, why do I want to, give anything to them when I can own it? And, but you know what? The truth for me is I love those characters, and okay, I don't own it. And if they make the movies, I don't get it. Well, okay, fine. The little kid in me that's the itch I'm scratching. I want to draw the Hulk. I like the Hulk. Or I want to draw Thor. I want to draw Lobo or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, so there's that aspect, but I don't want to lock into either company for long durations of time. I want to do some more creator owned entirely, but still get that little kid in there and go, here you go, Reggie. You get to draw Ben Grimm, or Ghost Rider, Captain America, or whatever. I know I'm naming all Marvel characters. Sorry, DC, but
but that's also what you grew up with, right? So it's normal. Maybe some other younger creators didn't grow up with the Marvel or DC characters, so it's easier for them to let go. But if it's what you grew up with, there's always going to be a side of you saying, as you just said, man, I've been at DC for the last whatever amount of years, and I'm a Marvel guy. I want to go back and do so. I'm playing in that band, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still inside. I'm a little kid with this stuff. And so when I see those heroes, I get excited. And so I go, of course I want to play around drum and see how well I can do it, if I can have some fun with it,
Let me see. Let me go with the people's questions before they think I forgot about them. Hello, Paula. Felipe González Hernandez. Hi, Greg. I enjoy your art since Quasar. It was amazing to see your evolution in Quasar every month. How do you remember that run? Your storytelling was very interesting and dynamic.
Well, first off, thanks for sticking with me. That's a long time. So, I'll tell you, first off, that was my first full-time book at Marvel. Prior to that, it was just piecemeal that they were giving to me to keep me busy until they found that. And the funny thing they might not know is that book was set for cancellation, which is why they gave it to the new guy. How bad can he do? We're going to chop it anyway. But the remarkable thing was the sales rose by like 20,000 copies a month or something like that. So after I came on, so it got spared from the chopping block. But my fondest memory was actually the writer Mark Grunwald, who was one of the sweetest people I ever met, and just a wonderful, genuine guy. Sadly, he died at age 40. He heart disease ran in his family, and so he made sure to exercise and stay very thin and eat clean, and still heart attack when he was in the night when he was 40 years old. But my fondest memory was working with Mark. His excitement and the vision that he had for that book, and it was a joyous thing to do.
Tortuga FM says, Court of Owls maybe love comics. Thank you. And he also says, unpopular opinion, Super Heavy is one of my favorite Batman stories.
You know what? I hear it's an unpopular opinion, but I hear a lot of people express that same sentiment. So, you know what? I didn't, Super Heavy had to happen based on the way we took our story. So I can't think of any other character that had been better than Commissioner Gordon to put in the role. And so I had a lot of fun with that, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I had fun. And the good thing, I'll just tell you as an aside, the great thing about being the artist and not the writer is if the people don't like a particular thing, most of the time I just go, is that guy? Okay. So we took a lot of hits for the armored suit with the tall ears. Well, Scott had to have those tall ears. He just was in love with those tall ears. So I gave him the tall ears, which I didn't mind. But when people started making fun of it, calling Bunny, whatever they call it, I don't remember. They had some clever names for it. I just go, there's that guy right there. Yeah, it's that guy. Yeah, I just draw this shit, So, but I'm glad you liked it. I had a lot of fun doing it. And if you look back, I see I drew Gordon shooting a guy or tasing. He had a batarang gun. I got a guy getting shot in the nuts. If you go back and look, it's when the Shark Tank gets busted out, and he's scooting around the ground. He's right between the guy's legs, boop, and you see the batarang go right into the guy's groin. So you check that out. You probably missed it.
I don't think it's that unpopular, to be honest. Most of us, including myself, we just think it happened when it had to happen. It was the natural progression, right? Is that what you think too?
We had to do it. We had to do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Bruce was gone, with the end game, and I think that's the order of things, and so we had to explain stuff and carry the ball forward down the field, and that just seemed like the best vehicle to do it.
Absolutely. Love from Howard says, "Salutations, Greg. Thank you so many comics. How do we remember your time in X-Force? I thought it was an amazing job from you. Was it for you at that time, like a high, pumping moment to get in and start working after Rob left the book?"
Well, of course, it was definitely a big moment. I mean, it was literally rocketing me from Quasar to one of the very top books. So, it was just wow, and so yeah, it was an honor and a thrill, and and I'll tell you though, so at the time, Bob Harris was the editor-in-chief over there. He later was the editor-in-chief of DC, who put me over there. But I remember him telling me, and make the characters, extra over the top, because that's how Liefeld style. And what you don't want when you run in a company is to have too much of a system shock, So you want to keep the reader sort of familiar with what they've been, especially with a popular book like one of the X-Men books. So I remember, and Bob going, and the more guns you could strap on cable, and the more pods, and then you go, just do it. So it's like, to me, I put it to such a cartoony level.
Yes.
And they're going, perfect. I'm going, okay, whatever. But it was an honor to be able to redesign all the costumes. That was a blast. And a lot of people had a real positive reaction to those new outfits. And so that was really cool. And I have to tell you, okay, so while I'm working on X-Force, McFarlane calls me up, and first he has to spend 10 minutes on the phone convincing me that it's actually Todd McFarlane, because I'm going, yeah, right, why Todd McFarlane calling? And I'm like, oh, Kevin, quit fucking around. Anyway, he finally convinces me, and I go, hey, Mom, Todd McFarlane's on the phone. She goes, who's that? So I go, forget about it. So Todd tries to talk me into leaving X-Force to come to work, for him at Image. And I said, are you crazy? I said, Marvel just hands me this plum, and you think I'm going to come and work for your little upstart company that could full tent overnight? Oh, no, thank you. And he said, pussy, and he hung up. And so he actually tried to rob me while I was on X-Force. And how I ended up going with Todd was, at the time, as everybody sees, man, I'm a real loyal guy. And I'd asked Marvel to promote me in the way that they promoted Jim and Rob and Todd and all those other guys. But they felt that that doing that burned them, because they elevated these guys to superstar status, and then they all went left. Yeah. And so they didn't want to give me that one little bit of push. And I asked them nicely a few times, and I said, look, man, I'm not going anywhere. I just want you to give me the same push that you gave those guys, and they wouldn't do it. And so I called Todd back up, and I said, you still have an opportunity. And without getting down the road into that whole story, that's how I ended up leaving X-Force. So I said to Todd, just let me finish, because I can't do anything for less than a year. It's sort of like I had my thing, my rules, and that's it. You were going to get 12 issues of X-Force before I went anywhere. And so I did that, and the rest is history.
Mm-hmm. And, they were scared to death at Marvel at that time. They were just scared.
They were. Understandable.
Absolutely. Arturo Lopez says, hi, Greg, you're a legend, and I love your work. It's just stunning and beautiful.
Thank you.
Blake Roybal says, love your comics, Red. What was drawing like for you in your formative years?
What was drawing like for me in my formative years?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, still forming. I don't know. I did it all for fun until I took it very seriously and tried to improve myself.
Mhm.
When I wanted to improve myself, one of the things I did was, and I still recommend this to everybody, get a bunch of different drawing pads and make each one a specialized subject. Could be hands, could be clothing, could be feet, could be heads, full body, bodies in motion, bodies in relaxation, whatever. Because there's a lot of components, and so you could get overwhelmed if you try and tackle it all in one thing. I feel that you'll absorb more if you focus. And so you can go, okay, every day, however much time you have allotted. So maybe 2 different subjects a day. You go, I'm going to put a half hour, 2 hours, or however much time you can, and do it every day. You put in some homework on each of those subjects, and do it. In my opinion, is to do it for photographs, because that's how you learn to get your interpretation of the real world. I don't recommend. It's cool if you admire different artists and you want to borrow from them, but I think first and foremost you should make real life study, whether from photographs or in real life, because that's going to be your true expression of how you interpret that stuff. Then if you go, hey, I like the way so and so did that little nick over there, I'll add that to my repertoire. Fine, that's cool. That's cool. And eventually what will happen, though, mostly, is as you continue to do it, what you studied yourself will kind of overtake that, and you'll start to weed out some of the influences that you had pasted from someone else's, and you'll develop your own, and you'll keep a few of them, but you'll start to develop your own. But you got to get that foundation built, and the way you do that, and it's never been easier, man. You got Google Images and whatever. Never been easier to go and see, hey, I used to go and get wrestling magazines, right? Because closest thing to a superhero flying was a wrestler coming off the top rope. And so, I'd get magazines like that, Sports Illustrated, whatever. And so I would draw out of those magazines and draw out from real life. And I think you should do that. That's how I did it. And I'll tell you, I will butt heads with Joe Quesada, because I heard him saying you don't need to learn anatomy or whatever. I think I heard him say that. And I'm in a disagreement with that. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I was taught that's an important thing. Joe became boss and said it's not an important thing. But I'm just going to tell you why I think it's an important thing. Is because if you understand what's happening underneath the skin, however it's connected, that's going to help you when you try and draw some odd, positioning. Now, Joe's argument could be, well, you just go get the picture off the internet. And that's a valuable argument, right? Viable argument. Okay, but I don't have to take the time to go and find that thing off the internet if I've already done all the road work. Okay, so, and I'll give you a perfect example. I had a friend who was trying to draw the Hulk, and he was all hunched over. You could see parts of the back, the scapula and stuff, and he couldn't get it right. Couldn't draw. He had a hell of a time. And I says, let me show you. And I drew it. Why? Because I just know how it's built. So you could just use reasonable deduction to go, well, this is connected to this and this connected to this, so it has to look this way. Yeah. So I drew it for him, and he said, oh, bullshit, it doesn't look like that. So I took my shirt off. I'm much smaller than the Hulk, but I still have the same anatomy. And so I bent over in that position. He goes, holy shit, it does look like that. So my argument is this is why you learn it. And then way you don't got to hunt for a picture, which take time. You know what I mean? You understand how it's all connected, right? And you can pull it together. So that's my advice, man. Don't take shortcuts. Do the drills, do the road work, and make yourself strong.
Yeah, and also, I completely agree with you, because that's your abstraction of reality. But it's got to be based on reality. When I see a guy that only draws stuff from photos or from other comics, I always say that tree is not real. Mm-hmm. That tree looks like you got it from another artist or from a photo.
Yeah.
And why? What's the problem? Is why didn't you look out the window? Why didn't you look at the street? If you don't understand how the leaves, how the branches move, you don't understand a tree. So it's not ever going to look real. It's got to be your abstraction of reality, but it's got to be based on reality, right?
The best example is Chuck Jones, all those cartoons and Bugs Bunny and all that stuff. I mean, if you look at what he was doing, man, okay, those are cartoons, but if you look at the way it's put together and the body language and everything, he did his work. He understands reality. He just took all that anatomy and his knowledge of posturing and everything like that, and posing, and he made it cartoony. Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. You could do with anything. Unless you're drawing South Park, you don't need to learn anatomy, okay? You just need to know how to draw circles and shit like that. But But if you want to do sort of like what I'm doing and others are doing, I think it's very valuable. It's invaluable. You should do it. Take the time. It's not that tough. Sure, learning the Latin sucks a little bit, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You get through it and do your road work, man.
Yep. By the way, you mentioned before Bob telling you to put all the weapons you could, etc., etc. That reminds me of Cable, that image of Cable with everything in his back. How much of Chuck Jones and Tex Avery was in that drawing?
I don't know how much, of my.
But you know what I mean. No, I'm not asking for it, but were they in your head?
Well,
in that cartoony way, like, let's just go over the top?
No, I'm never consciously thinking of that. But the guys who thrilled me the most growing up was John Buscema was definitely like a king to me. He was, did almost every Marvel character. A lot of people will know him from the Conan work that he did because he did a lot of that. Also, because I looked at Mad Magazine, Mort Drucker was the other guy who wowed me because he would draw those caricatures. So it was twisted yet so realistic. And so that was like, wow. And then Chuck Jones had the great gestures and body English. So, I mean, I think those three guys somehow ended up in my makeup.
Mm-hmm.
But I never sit down and go, okay, let me pull out more, or let me pull out, I don't think about it. This is what I say, we all have all of these different influences and they all go through this filter and come out, when we're doing it. And so that's what makes us all unique. So it's not just so, even though like I could be looking at the same people you're looking at, all the same influences. Mm-hmm. Say you were locked in a box and those were your three main guys, John, more and you go, okay, but we still are different human beings who've had different experiences. So we're going to still see it differently and experience it a little bit differently. So then when you do these interpretations, it's still going to look different than mine. Mine's going to look different from yours. And that's the beauty of it, man. That's the beauty of the art, is because we all have our own experiences and our own filters, and we can all look at that same bowl of fruit in art class and all sit down and draw, and it's all going to look a little bit different from the person sitting next to us because we all have our own experience that we bring to the table, baby. And that's what makes it such a thrill and such a magical experience, man. Drawing is magic.
That's amazing thing, as you said. I just reminded what you said before, that it was in your library. Even if you weren't thinking about it, it was in your library. So when you were asked, go over the top, probably not even thinking about it, that came out, right?
Right. I mean, it's the same as, I'm sure, our mannerisms are attributed to some relative that we grew up with, and we're just subconsciously mimicking. Well, I admired that person and I adopted this thing or this eyebrow or, whatever. You think that Scott Snyder's eyebrow is natural like that? No, he might have seen that in a cartoon or a movie or someplace. Maybe he's a wrestling fan. It's The Rock, if you smell, so I don't know. If you smell, take a shower. So yeah, we're all have these influences that make us up, man. We're the sum total of our experiences. So
absolutely. Victor Q says hi from Colombia, Mr. Capullo. Manoli Martinez, hi guys. Hi Manoli. Mike Flowers, what do you like about comics versus other forms of storytelling? And he hashtag Capullo Army.
I don't know, man. It's one of those things that just grabbed me. I would just go to the store. At the time, they had spinner racks. Which starting to make a comeback a little bit. Don't know if they have them where you are, but the spinner rack would have all the comics, and so your mother or whatever would take you someplace to shop, whether it be the drugstore or wherever, and there'd be these spinner racks. So, well, I don't care about what she's doing, so I'd stand in front of the spinner rack and the colors and the heroes and the action. I mean, I just was like, wow. So for me, there was nothing else. I mean, I never considered, maybe I'll go and be a storyboard artist in Hollywood or something like that, which would be awesome and cool, I'm sure. But those comics, man, they just grabbed me by the throat when I was a little kid and never let me go.
Mm-hmm. Victor Q says, Mr. Capullo, do you remember your first experience as a professional comic book artist?
Yes. Yeah. It was a local comic store. And they put out a book called Gore Shriek. The comic store was called Fantico. The guy running it was Bob Schoolin, and he gave me my first opportunity. And I collaborated with another comic owner who at Electric City Comics named Bill Townsend. He wrote the story, and I illustrated the story. And back then, I did everything, including the lettering, which, really bad idea. But, it's not like we had a lot of people to draw upon. This is a small neighborhood. And so I penciled it, inked it, and put the word balloons in. All right. And so I think I got paid $40 a page to do that stuff. And it was a black and white publication. I remember saying in an interview one time it was slave labor, and it really ticked Bob Schoolin off because, he goes, that was good wages back then, and I'm sure it was. And it wasn't an intentional slight to Bob. I'm grateful that he gave me an opportunity to do my very first work. But that's what it was. It was from a local comic shop in Albany, New York.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Kikaman asks, Mr. Capullo, it's an honor to have you here. What is your best tip to draw Batman? Thank you so much.
Well, geez, I can only tell you, I don't know about tip. I could tell you how I envisioned him. Okay. And if that helps you, fantastic. So I always, one thing that I see, I wanted Batman to be an intimidating, imposing, monolithic shape. So let's remove all the detail. So when he's sitting still, I wanted him to seem like something heavy, something solid, something dangerous, that you didn't really want to bump into this thing. And so you notice the way I drew the cowl come down and very wide neck that goes straight into the traps. To me, that made that even more powerful and heavy. And then the next thing I wanted to do, I'd grown up with, Neil Adams and many other artists drawing Batman and every other hero, like a contest-ready bodybuilder who had the suit spray painted on him. And that looks cool and everything like that. It's just not what I saw for my Batman because, growing up, I've known some very dangerous human beings who were not shredded. They were slabs. And I wanted my Batman to be more of a slab. And so he didn't need to have all knots in his abs. I thought he'd be more threatening and more dangerous if he lacked those things. Mm-hmm. And you go, well, he wouldn't be as agile. Well, we're going to suspend belief because it's a comic book. It's a comic book. So I'll do, we can do whatever we want. And but anyway, you look at football players; they're pretty big and they're pretty agile, right? These guys tipping at almost 300, and you see those guys move on the field. So we're in a same as swinging around the city. But again, it's comic books.
In case it wasn't clear. But by the end of the day, it's just sometimes you just have to say it even louder because it's called suspension of reality. You're reading a comic book. You are not reading a history book. Just fucking enjoy it. Enjoy it.
People, to me, and it's probably just people who've grown up, right? And so they start to they lose that childlike factor. And so they start to, just pick apart and, oh, well, mama, instead of just going, man, it's just cool, right? It's a comic thing. I'm still such a juvenile that like a Godzilla movie or something like that, or now King Kong and be fighting Godzilla. I don't give a shit if it's a good story. I want to see two big monsters beat the shit out of each other. That's all I'm signing up for. If there happens to be a good story that's gone with it, well, fantastic. But I'm still buying that cake. I'm still going to buy that cake. I don't care, how he baking. I'm getting that cake. I can't wait. He dunks that Godzilla ray right back into his throat. Whoa! I'm sold, man. That's what I'm there for. And comics is that to me. That is that. If it's got a great story and all that, I think ideally it should have all of that. But you can't be too hung up and nitpick too much because then you've kind of missed the whole point of comic books, in my opinion. I
absolutely agree. I remember when they opened what? Sorry?
I can't hear you, David.
I was saying that. Can you hear me now?
I didn't hear anything.
Hello. Hello.
There you are.
Okay. So I was saying that when they released Kong Skull Island, people was like, "Oh, that's great," and I was like, "Fuck off!" It's Kong fighting monsters in an island.
Yeah, I loved it.
And Samuel Jackson being crazy, trying to kill, and sorry, spoilers, he's like 6 years old. And then when Kong gets mad, it's just a stunt fucking Samuel L. Jackson. It's like, how cannot you not enjoy it? It's just over the top crazy. King Kong. What did you
Oh,
say?
I love the opening where that giant head just comes up. Oh my God, what a powerful opening. Oh, see. Oh, I love that shit.
Yeah, but it was amazing. Just the American soldier. Then the other one just brings the katana out and is about to kill him. And then you see Kong, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That's the movie. Like,
Yeah, see, I'm still 8 years old.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, it's not that deep. It should be like, it's fucking King Kong.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. I just want him to stomp things.
Listen, I'm sure my wife finds it annoying that I'm still like child, but my kid loves it because I'm like, I can relate to all this shit. I'm like, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm a little kid, man. So yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, man. It just has to be fun.
Yeah, that's what it has to be. It's King Kong or it's comics. Just enjoy them.
Yeah,
Stop watching. Stop reading.
Right, and
it's not your thing. It's not your thing. But let us enjoy it.
Right, and if you don't, I mean, there's so much stuff out there. You just put one thing down, pick something else up. I mean, everybody would be happy. That's the other thing, man. It's like everybody wants to be mad these days. Everybody's looking to be pissed off about something and attack people for them, no matter which position you're at, and it's attack worthy. And it's just like, man, life is so short. To spend that time like that, just. If you don't dig something, man, just go find something that you do dig and live and let live, man. I mean, it's just, it's a big world out there.
Yes, and as I said before, I'm fine if you don't like it. Just let us enjoy it. The rest of
that's all, man.
So says Lalbar says, "Oh my God, it's Capullo! Wow, this channel is awesome." Like, okay, thank you. And yeah. Because he's here. That's why the channel is awesome. Germán Ample says, hello then. David da Silva says, when will you work in Reborn Volume 2 with Mark Millar? Or work again with Mark Millar?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was mentioned even after the completion of the first series that, which that it's been sold to Netflix. So I know that at some point they mentioned doing a sequel to it, comic sequel. I imagine they'll want to have the first live action come out before going into a sequel. So I haven't heard anything. I know that I think that I remember Mark saying that Netflix would I'd have the first right of refusal to illustrate it, and I would love to do it. So, but I haven't heard anything. I imagine, like I said, we got to get the first motion picture out, get that done. And before we can come out with a sequel, that would make sense. So, but I'm down for it, man. I loved it. Creating all those environments and those characters, it was a blast.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Eduardo says that's amazing to listen to Greg Capullo. The analogy with JR is amazing. Him and Greg, they are both two of the greats.
Oh, thank you, man. I love JR.
Blake Rival, which new comic book of the last 10 years, so he's giving you a big span, do you love for the art? And which story arc is your favorite personal art you've drawn?
Ooh, well,
Second one is asking to pick between his songs.
Yeah. Well, I can't name specific comic where the art was great. There's so many great artists. I mean, there's just really too many to name. I mean, the talent pool is so deep out there, and there are various different styles. I mean, you got Sean Gordon Murphy, who's one of my favorites, and you have Ryan Otley, you have Bacalo. I mean, listen, I'll occupy the whole rest of the interview just naming names. I mean, there's just too many. Pacelli, Cloonan. I mean, there's just too many. I mean, so I just look at art and appreciate it. It's not like, oh, that one person. It's a whole pool where you just go, wow, they're great. They're great. Oh, wow, how great they are. How great they are. So I'm grateful that they exist. I'm grateful that they tickle my eyeballs. And as far as my own work, man, I don't know. They're I'll tell you, when you do what I do and you work it so much, it's like an assembly line. You go, do you remember which chocolate that came off the assembly line was your most favorite, delicious one? No, man. I don't even remember what I drew yesterday. You know what I mean? I'd have to go back and look, and then it's like I'm looking at somebody else's because I've forgotten it already because I'm just da-da-da-da-da-da. But listen, I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to draw comics, period, number one. And so it doesn't matter, picking this, what's your favorite character, what's your favorite book, man. I'm lucky that my dream came true. You know what I mean? So I'm nothing but grateful. I don't need to single out anything as the best or my favorite. I'm grateful that I'm one of the lucky people in the world that had the dream come true. And that's the honesty of it. So it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm just grateful for every opportunity. And so I always just try my hardest. So my next thing will be my favorite thing because I'll try it even harder. I don't know. I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful.
I just when you were answering about favorite artists, I just remember, and you will remember, not many years ago when we were in Wizard World Chicago, that Carlos Pacheco wanted to meet you and you wanted to meet Carlos Pacheco. So I introduced you, and you were going to tell Carlos how much you admire him, and Carlos was going to tell you how much he admired you. For it was like 5 minutes of I love your work.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah. And every once in a while I still, well, not in a while I haven't run into him. Everything's shut down. But every once in a while, I'll pass him in, hey, on an elevator. Hey, now it's like we're old, long lost friends. But there's just so many great guys that I admire, man. Lee Weeks is great. Ron Garney's great from the older school. I mean, in the new crops, there's just too many. There's just too many. I'll tell you what, if I was trying to get into business now, I'd be really intimidated. And the thing is when there's so many talented people, it makes your job of getting in all harder because, comics is, you could self-publish. So we're not talking about that. Anybody could right now put a comic book together and publish. But I'm talking about getting a gig at, like whether it be Marvel or DC or Image Comics or Dark Horse, whatever. But, that's a relatively small dog bowl. And there's a lot of dogs want to eat at that bowl. And so when you have all these strong talents, writers and artists, that makes your job of getting to that bowl all the harder.
Yep.
And so how you do that is going back to what I told you. Do the hard work. Put it in. Be hungrier and make yourself stronger than the others so that you can muscle your way up to the bowl and get a bite for yourself. Yep. And the way you do it isn't by sitting back and wishing it to happen. Nobody gets anything from just sitting back and wishing. It comes from hard work, and the talent pool that's out there is ensured that you have to work very hard, very hard. And it's another reason why I keep working hard. I see all these people, I can't let them be, but they want to take my job. I got to try and stay strong,
Yeah, that reminds me of, when he was named a doctor in a university, Steve Jobs was asked, what would you recommend? What would be your tip for people? And he just said, I wish what I always wish for myself. Stay hungry, stay foolish.
Yeah. You know what? I actually used that line to fight with DC editors, because when I wanted to, I think it was maybe issue 5 where I turned the issue, and they had initially agreed to my idea to do that, and then later started to second guess it and worry that that the public would think it was a printing error and stuff, and I got really upset because I'd crafted this with this idea, and then now they were starting to get shy, and that's the exact quote I used on Bob Harris about staying foolish. And Bob said, you know what? I'm as foolish as they come. Let's do it. And it was a great thing because the fans really still to this day comment about issue 5, the one that completely rotated and crowed of owls. So anyway, yeah, that's a very valuable quote, and it's a very important one.
Luis Pevidio says, hello. Which is your favorite superhero from 2 points of view, as a professional and as a fan?
Oh, geez. I don't know if I have one specific favorite. Certainly Batman would have to be at the top of a list because I don't know if you've known this, but the first drawing that I have evidence that I created was a drawing of Batman and Robin that I did when I was only 4 years old. So it was almost really cool that I grew up to draw him professionally. So, but I think who doesn't love, Batman, and who doesn't love Spider-Man? There's certain just iconic characters that I think we all universally have a feeling for. And to say which one's better, oh God, I can't. I love them as a basket of things. I love this bowl of stuff. And so I don't know that I could pick out a specific individual one because I love so many of them, and I love them almost all equally to a point, So it's too big of a question, man.
Dave Da Silva says, will you work forever with Jonathan Grappi and Francisco Plasencia? Please say yes.
Well, Jonathan is my inker. I told him he can't quit until I quit. FCO, I love FCO. And FCO is a guy who I feel you can't replace him. He's a very unique voice. And he's wanted to get out of the comics business for a while. And he says the only reason he's still doing it is because I'm still making comics, and that when I stop, he'll stop. So it's like I'm hoping that he's a man of his word and that he won't stop as long as I'm doing it, because I really like the team I have, and I don't want it to change. And so my goal is to keep the family together.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Jacob Church says, did you come up with the design for the Batman Who Laughs, Greg? If so, what was your inspiration for it?
For the look of him?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how it happens is Scott always comes to me with some seeds of ideas that he has. So like for the Batman Who Laughs, first step was he has to look metal. So, I'm thinking leather and spikes. He came up with the idea, maybe we don't see his eyes at all, like it's covered. And so you're like, okay, so we got to take his eyes away, but he has to have Batman, so we got to give him a crown. So, I mean, it was like he would give me these seeds of what it would have to be, and then I visualize, how do we make this thing, scary? And he'll say, maybe the smile's more dangerous looking somehow, so that's the kind of way he'll talk to me. And from there, I just sit down with a sketch pad and see what comes out and then go, what do you think? And that's just how it happens, man. So it's really, it's like a, relationship that he'll give me the seeds, I put it in the soil, and I water it and see what comes up.
Mm-hmm. Dave Da Silva says, will you work with Scott in a creator-owned or DC comic soon? I guess the question is if your next project together is going to be for DC or creator-owned.
We are currently working on something that's creator-owned. That's what I'm working on right now. So we're going to be doing that. He might help me in some capacity. He's already helped me by reviewing my Creech scripts and telling me, oh, this is fantastic. I think if you did this little tweak here, that would make it better. And then I do that and I show it to him. So he sort of served as an editor already. So we'll see. I'm going to keep him on board to make sure that it's the best it can be. But he and I have many different ideas in a basket that we have made a partnership with each other and go, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's your idea or it's my idea. We'll share them as 50-50 partners, and we'll try and sell these properties together. So we have some long-range plans, Scott and I, together.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Yannick Paquette is saying hello, Yannick. And one day we'll tell the story about the dinner we had together in a place, the most uptight and stupid place in Chicago. Anyway, Arturo Lopez, would you like to work with Grant Morrison again?
I haven't thought about it at all. Matter of fact, I'm guilty in that I didn't know who Grant Morrison was, and I didn't know who Neil Gaiman was when I did these works under Todd, who did know who these guys were. So I was in a different area that I wasn't really aware. I mean, I heard their names, I suppose, but I hadn't read any of their works. And so it was never a goal back then, and I guess it's still not a goal right now. I mean, my plans are to continue on with Scott, also to write my own Creech, which I've done, and possibly work with some cats like maybe Dan Slott or Cates or somebody at Marvel, and to work Mark Millar again. Yeah, I don't see that as a goal of what you mentioned there, but no disrespect, obviously, no disrespect. But yeah, I don't see it playing out as far as how I have my docket.
Yeah, absolutely. Andres LC says, hi, I'm a big fan. Ulises Curiel says your boy band should be called the Bat Street Boys.
Aces, I'm stealing that.
Hello there, great to have you here, says Drink and Draw Costa Rica. Germán Ample Duran, you have the best mustache in the comics industry.
Oh, thank you very much. You need the balance, you need the balance, otherwise your head flops around.
Absolutely, yes. In my case, it's I'm going down all this. You see me all the time because my beard is too long. I have to trim it. Oscar Silence Death says, hi Greg, love your work. Is there, if you could pick, what's your favorite Batman story that you drew of all the stuff you did? And it's not because of what I did, because I wish I'd done Court of Owls later when I got more familiar with the character. But Court of Owls, to me, I love it the most because I think, and it's all because of Scott coming up with this idea of taking Batman, who's so supremely overly confident that nobody knows Gotham City better than him. Mm-hmm. And to now go, no, there's these guys
and gals who've been here for 400 years right underneath the surface, and you didn't know a damn thing about them. That, to me, I mean, I just got chills just saying it to you. I mean, that is like genius stroke move to unseat a character like Batman and to put this under and shake his confidence and question his whole reality. What I thought I knew this place and I didn't know it at all. And to not understand the degree of manipulation that it's taken place. I mean, to me, that's amazing. So I love that the most, not because of anything I did, all because of Scott's concept. I'm most proud of being a part of that.
Mm-hmm. Arturo Lopez, I'm going to put together these two questions because you already answered in a way. So in case you want to get to more detail, Arturo Lopez says, where do you get the inspiration and ideas to try and do new and creative things in every book you draw? And the second, how do you mix the Chuck Jones influence with Frank Frazetta? I read you're into cartoonists too.
Yeah, well, okay. So as far as the storytelling thing, I mean, we all watch films, and that's one of the ways you can be influenced in how to approach storytelling, because you'll see different directors and some ways that they approach things, and it'll appeal to you. And also, yeah, okay, I'm giving you another art tip for those people who want to do what I do. Okay, this is very much cinema. Okay, so in order to understand directing and develop a style, one thing is to just understand the basics, and you get a book like The 5 C's of Cinematography, which was recommended to me by Marvel, to give you the basics. And then what you could do to understand and get influenced by directors is to watch movies with the sound off. And if you can tell what's going on with the sound off, that's good directing. So, and if you can't, then forget it. That's a bad director. You don't want to be studying anything from that. And from there, you can start to look at the different ways that I put the camera over here. What kind of effect did that have on me by putting the camera there? You know, and you could start to develop your style. So direction is very much about thinking about the psychology of what it's going to make the viewer feel by, you know, the mood, the lighting, the placement of the camera, the emotion. So that's so that you're always trying to play with those things, and you're always being influenced by things you see, movies you've watched and shows you've seen on TV, and those all go into that well I was talking about earlier, and you could draw upon it and be inspired and oh, I could do that, but I can do this little twist on it and make it my thing, you know. So that's that. And the other part of the question was, the marriage of well, again, I don't think there's anybody in that does what I do who didn't love Frank Frazetta. You know, I find it surprising. There's some younger people who don't know who Frank Frazetta is, and if I had hair, I'd just pull it right out of my head. Yep. But he you know, was just the master, Michelangelo of this genre. And so, I mean, that was another influence that was very young. And I'll tell you, when I was in high school, I took oil painting. And so they want you to paint whatever, and I'd want to paint the kind of crazy shit that, you know, I saw like Frazetta doing, you know, and my art teacher would come over and go, you know, what is this stuff? You know, and she'd always buy, you know, give me a stop it, you know. And so one time I got these 5 books of his. It was a collection. I still have all my Frazetta books, and it had a collection of all his paintings, you know. And so I brought these books in, and I said, hey, Mrs. Samil, God, I love this woman. She was mean as a snake, but I loved her. And I gave her these books to look at. I said, why don't you look at this? So she starts flipping through the books, and she's going, well, he's obviously a master of color. Well, he's obviously a master of movement. Well, he's obviously a master. And, you know, the word master kept coming off of her tongue. And she got the message. And from there, she stopped trying to push me off. Instead, she trying to show me how I could do what I was doing better to meet that goal. So, but yeah, Frazetta was just, it was in my DNA. It was in everybody's DNA. You look at this shit, you get your mind just go bow, you know. And Boris was also happening at the time, but I gravitated to Frazetta more than Boris, because Boris used a lot of his stuff looked static, like a photograph, masterful. But Frazetta just had more fluidity to it, and it seemed more alive to me. So yeah, it's just in me, man. I don't hold a candle to it. I'm not a pimple on his ass, as they say.
Yeah, no, and that's what you mentioned before about the photograph, you know, being static like this. Yeah. Boris could be that, and Frazetta would be the fluidity of the movement at all times, right?
Yeah, it really just captured the movement, man. It was alive.
Mhm. Geraldo Borges says, just to let you know, Greg, I learned a lot of perspective reading and practicing with your wizard basic training. Thank you.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
Love from Horse says, how were you able to draw this? I think this is a compliment. That Angela miniseries so well. It's my favorite Image comic ever. What was that your entrance into McFarlane Productions?
No, my first one was finishing up the Violator miniseries. See, that's what he really wanted me to do when he tried to tap me when I was on X-Force, but I didn't want to leave. So he gave that job to Bart Sears. And when I was disappointed with Marvel and I called Todd up, what had been going on was Bart Sears was going a little too slow, and so Todd said, "Bart, you're done. Greg, you're going to finish up." So I did part 3 of the Violator miniseries, and then I did some issues of Spawn, and then I did the Angela. And of course, it's fun to draw Angela. I mean, I got to draw girls, because usually, there's not too many females. It's a very sausage-like factory, the superhero comics. So it was nice to be able to draw some females, some cool, strong females. Now I look back at that now, and again, it's a couple things. Is back then in the 90s, I was a younger guy, and things were a little more sexualized in the way you presented women back then when we were doing it. And now we're in a very different environment, where it's really frowned upon to do that. And I'm also a more mature guy in my years, so I wouldn't do it that way. So, but I look at it those, and it worked great then. It was fun, but you go, man, I sure wouldn't do any of that stuff now. It'd be a different thing. It's about growing up and society changing and all that. And you got to change with it. You don't want to be a goddamn dinosaur. We all know what happened to them.
Yeah, so, it's called context. The other day I heard that. I think it's Bambi and a couple more, that Disney took them out of the kids section of Disney Plus.
Oh.
It's only for adults now. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? It's like, well, because they have, racist stuff and all that. And I was like, wait, this is called context. You got to tell kids that happened in that era. And in this context is different. You cannot hide it from them. If you hide it from them, how are they going to learn? Plus, so I'm still showing it to my kid, just to stay in the context.
I think sometimes we get a little too crazy. And I'll give you an example. Okay. At one point I was living with this woman, and she had a young child. I raised him for a few years, and I think he was around 8 years old when this happened. Now, all the Looney Tunes cartoons with, in particular, Elmer Fudd and Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny. So, they had gone into this period where they were editing the Bugs Bunny cartoons. So when you had duck season, rabbit season, and Elmer Fudd would blast Daffy in the face with a shotgun and the beak would fall to the ground, it'd be all chopped up. So you never saw the gun blast. All of a sudden, Daffy's picking up the beak and putting it back on. And I'm telling the kid, I'm going, oh, dude, you're missing it. Here's what happened. And I explained to the kid, I go, but they don't want you to see this because they think for some reason you're going to find a shotgun and want to shoot your friend in the face because, you saw it in the cartoon. And the kid, 8 years old, goes, but it's just a cartoon.
There you go.
The 8-year-old kid gets that it's just a cartoon. And the ironic part is the people who made these rules and laws that they fixed them. They put it all back together. But the people who made the decision to edit those were people who grew up on them and now made successes of themselves, obviously, because now they're in the driver's seat trying to control it. Yep. You made it. There was no repercussion, no bad repercussion. The kid understands it's a cartoon. It's a cartoon. Yeah. So I think sometimes we grow up and we lose that childlike aspect of ourselves. Absolutely. And we become our parents, God forbid, and we start to get a little too uptight. And I think that's a thing that has happened and it continues to happen in different places at different times. Mm-hmm. And I just go, and I think it's all us becoming our parents, shudder, and we lose that child imagination, innocence, where we're not putting too much deep shit on it. You're an adult. Like Jamie, my wife will see something that Jackson's done and she'll have an opinion on it. I'll go, but you have an opinion of a woman who's lived for decades. You're not this kid who had less than 2 decades. I says, of course you see it differently than this kid is seeing it. And I think we lose sight of that, and we try and ruin the fun of the little kid instead of the little kid and having his joy and figuring it out. And if you got a good parent and good leadership in your family, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I was telling to Paloma yesterday. The movie is not Bambi, it's Dumbo, and it's like so our kid cannot see, and have the oh my god, seeing an elephant fly because somebody deems they shouldn't see that thing about the racism in the movie like 50 years ago, and they
Yeah.
don't think I can fucking explain to my kid.
Yeah. 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 It doesn't give you enough credit. So,
So
yeah, I mean, like, listen, I've raised Jackson since he was 6 years old. He's seen a lot of things, but I'm there to give him the moral compass.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
to go, this is bad, this is wrong, this is not right, this is why. You know what I mean? This is the job of a parent, and and the only way it goes bad is if you don't have good parenting.
Mhm.
I'll give you an example because I always look to the wild for examples. All right, so there was an instance where a lot of rhinos were ending up dead, killed by bull elephants, and they go, well, what's going on? Because these are not normal predators of each other. What it turned out was there were no adult mature males teaching the young bulls. And so once they introduced some mature bulls into that area to teach the young bulls, the rhino killing stopped. So you need parenting, you need guidance.
Yeah,
And as long as you have that guidance, man, no rhinos will be killed.
yeah. Let us do our job, please.
Yeah.
Movie producers, we kind of know or kind of can learn something.
Yeah. You can't whitewash everything,
Absolutely, 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 absolutely. Fernando Guetta says, "Hi, it's amazing how your style has evolved from X4 to Spawn to Batman. It's really great. I love how you can create some great narrative with your art."
Thank you.
Felipe Gonzalez says, "Your signing with Image was a big change in your career. Was it a conscious decision, or did you just get carried away, wanted to try new things?" Well, I think you explained already. Marvel.
Yeah, I explained already. Todd just drafted me. Had Marvel promoted me, I never went to Todd. I'd have probably still been drawn at Marvel to this day, So they messed up, and
And it was,
Todd,
and it was good for you.
yeah. And listen, I wouldn't trade it. Working with Todd, not Image. I don't even think about it as worked with Image. I worked with Todd. That's how I sort of see it.
Yeah.
It was, and Scott, plug your ears. You know what I'm going to say. I say it all the time. It makes you crazy every time. Working with Todd was the most fun I ever had working in comics. And to me, it's the highlight of our career. I love you, Scott. I love you. I love you, Scott. But yeah, and so yeah, I don't regret any of that. It was a happy thing that happened. And working with Todd it was not only a growing experience, it was just a fun ride. We're very similar people, and we stay very close to this day. We're like brothers. And yeah, I wouldn't trade any of that stuff. It was great. Everything worked out the way it should.
Yes, absolutely. Francisco Sanchez, can you tell us about that change in your style that we saw in the Batman books? He means that in terms of, he thinks that you did the lines every time more thinner in the faces and all that you kept evolving and make it again being more subtle with your line.
Well, I certainly, again, you're the last one to see your work. An inker's line is what you really see in there. So if an inker goes thinner or thicker, that's what you're going to pick up. Now, certainly, I have thin and thick lines when I pencil.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe that part is being picked up. I didn't have any conscious thought. The only thing here's the only conscious thoughts I had taking on Batman. When I was about to take on Batman, I made the very terrible mistake of going onto message boards. Avoid message boards. Message boards suck. And a lot of people just saying shitty things about me. 90s artist going to be taking over Batman. Oh, we're going to look forward to more pouches. I'm so clever. More pouches. I'm clever. And then going, oh, he's going to have a 40-foot long cape, man. He's going to be like Spawn. And so you had all this shit getting into my head. So I go, okay, we got to make sure, even though some guys giving Batman a really big cape, I can't be one of them because I did Spawn, and they're going to go, see? And if I'd never gone on the message board, my Batman might have looked a little bit different. But I went on there, and I listened to that stuff. So I was really going, okay, can't look anything like Spawn because people will lose their shit. And so that was the conscious part of me. Don't make it overly detailed. Don't give him a really long cape. Don't make it at all any kind of Spawn-esque. And even though Todd was inspired by Batman, obviously makes Spawn. So anyway, that was the only conscious thing I made. And then the other thing that you would see, like how I thought I wanted to draw Batman early on is not how I ended up drawing Batman. Because for me, I went in thinking I wanted to draw Batman a certain way. But as I get working on a book, the characters start to tell me how they want to be drawn and how they act and everything. And so then I'm just listening to them and I'm doing what they tell me to do. So my first few issues, and maybe you could argue even all of Court of Owls, was me thinking I was approaching it this way until the book told me how to draw it. So again, it's nothing real conscious other than don't get the message board guy going. The 90s guy, he's going to kill our Batman. I really didn't want to kill their Batman. They gave me so much hate before I even got out of the gate. So yeah. So the lesson is follow your instincts and stay off of message boards.
Yeah, and the 90s guy gave Batman its best sales in 30 years.
Yeah, that too.
So that shows message boards are worth shit. Anyway.
Yeah.
C says, Greg, when Todd inked full pages with your pencils, who inked the big black areas with X marks? If Todd inked it all, why would he add any X marks?
Well, because time. Okay, so when you add an X, that means fill it in black. Now, normally that's a note to yourself, and you go fill it in black, or you have an assistant who fills it in black. But in the Spawn's case, that usually fell to Brian Haberlin, who was coloring the books at the time, for most of the time when I was there. There's also Olaf was coloring it anyway. So they would then just trap the area and digitally dump a black into that. So now I have all this Spawn artwork that has all these open, unfilled in areas. And so when people buy the pages, I take the time because it looks terrible without solid black. And I'm painting in the blacks now before when the sale goes, I paint anything that's missing and away it goes there. But that's what was happening. It was digitally being dumped in.
Okay. Fletcher Chufong. Hey, Fletcher. Love you, Fletcher. Love you, Fletcher. DC, letting you go.
Yeah.
Biggest mistake ever.
Suck.
I'm saying it here openly for everybody to hear. Biggest mistake ever. Fletcher is fucking amazing and a genius.
Love the big man.
So he says, you have the best guest, David. Greg is one of my favorites, a true rock star artist.
Oh, thanks, Fletch, man. I love you, brother.
We love you, Fletch. Thank you. Fernando Argueta, do you continue drawing all in traditional way, or you do also use digital? What suggestion can you give us to improve our drawings? Oh, he said it. Work.
Yeah,
greetings from Punta Arenas, Chile.
Thank you. Well, there's no shortcuts, as I said. You have to put in the work. That's the way you improve with anything, right? When you're trying to learn how to walk, when your mother was trying to get you to walk, right? You could bang your head on the table because you can't do it, but you kept trying and practicing until you could walk, and then eventually you learned how to run. I mean, but there was no shortcut to that. You didn't go, hey, what's the shortcut to? You didn't go to the other kids on the block. Hey, how'd you get to your feet walking around? No, of course not. You had to do it and take your lumps and get it together, man. So that's the way you do that. And well, I'm sorry, I forgot the first part of the question.
No, don't worry about it. It's you still do traditional. That is,
yes, the traditional.
You use digital too.
Yes, okay. When I do paintings, which I haven't in a while, I like to do that digitally. No turpentine, no rags, no cleanup. It's great. Also no original board, but whatever. But when it comes to drawing comics, I have inked some digitally pieces. Mostly when it comes to pencils, that's all old school. The closest you can get to any kind of digital action happening for me now with that, if I'm not doing any inking at all and it's just penciling. When I do my thumbnails, when I'm doing my layouts to how I'm going to tell the story, those are usually only around this big. And once I get the sheets of them, then I'll scan those into the computer and I'll take them into Photoshop and I'll blow them up and then I'll print them out comic book page size, which is 11 by 17, and then I'll bring them to the light table so that I get my layout and then I discard that and do it. So the closest digital is just that little bridge to but that's again just like a time saving thing. I could definitely just look at my thumb and draw it But that's the way I do it.
Okay, thank you. Arturo Cortez, part one. Mr. Greg, I really love your art. You are one of my greatest artistic inspirations. I have a question. What do you recommend to present your portfolio to any publisher? Is it mandatory to go to a convention to present your portfolio, or is there other option that is not in person? And do you have to be of legal age? Sorry for so many questions.
Okay, no, you're good. You're good. Now, things are different than when I was getting in. So I'm not sure that I'll have an accurate answer for you. I can only go by little bits and pieces that I've heard going by me. Okay, because my day, you could actually go and meet with an editor in their office and they would review your portfolio. And I know that it shows they do sometimes have somebody from the companies who will allow you to bring your portfolio and display it. I've also heard that some of these companies, they want to see you present them with a fully made comic book. So to me, that doesn't make sense, and I wouldn't run it that way. But if that's the way it is, then that's the way it is. So the recommendation that I hear is that, if you don't have any friends locally that you can collaborate with, there's many online resources if people want to make comics, and you should get together with them. You could even make an online comic and use that as a presentation. Mm-hmm. The advice I would give you about your portfolio itself, though, is to make sure, this is forgetting making an entire comic, but, examples of work is, a lot of people want to just show you the big splashy heroes punching it out and splash pages and cover art. That doesn't really tell anybody that you can do what we do. You have to prove that you can tell a story. So you need panel-to-panel continuity. And it can't be just the action stuff, because we all like that. We all love to do that. But you need to also demonstrate that you could do quiet scenes, like a couple having a conversation in a coffee shop. You have to show that stuff. Present different different environments, whether it's outdoors or in a cafe or, different settings, and along with your hero stuff. Show that you can act and show that you can do all these different elements, because you're called upon to do all of those things when you put a comic book together. Mm-hmm. So you have to prove that. And so when you're making your portfolio, be aware.
Yeah, if you let me add to that, Greg, since it's my field of expertise. Okay, so Arturo, first thing, editors love people who finish things. So it's not that much about having your own complete comic, blah, blah, blah. But we're in an era where you can use almost anything to publish something. I mean, websites, blogs, etc., etc. So have something with your friends, as Greg said, whoever. Just create your own comic, your own stuff. Again, not their stuff, because legally that's your own stuff, and do it. And second thing, when you do a portfolio, if you want to go that route, just try to do it. For me, this is the perfect portfolio. Greg may correct me because he's God and I'm just, his minion. At 12 pages, and I mean, like, you want to go superheroes, do 3 action pages with Marvel, 3 action pages with DC, and then forget about Marvel and DC. Go with the reality. Pages of people actually sitting in a bar talking, walking around. Show them you can do the quiet moments, the reality, and you can do the action, because you need to do both. And if anybody tells you you only need the action, that's not true. That's not how superhero comics work. You need to do, as I said before with Greg, the subtlety of one hand, on a chin, and the expression on an eye is going to tell you the story too. So you need to move between those, and have also, if you can add a couple pages with covers so they can see. You can also do illustration in case they want to use you to do the covers. That's also good too. But never too much, but never 3 pages only. They are not going to show everything that you can do. So try to move above both, but show them you can finish things.
And always present your absolute best work. Can't tell you how many people go, well, this is not my best stuff. Well, why are you showing me this stuff then?
Yes.
Don't show me this stuff. It's not your best stuff. Show me your best stuff.
Yes. So, it's one of the biggest mistakes I've ever seen, and Greg have seen this many times too, is people talking to an editor saying, oh, I didn't have time, justifying themselves in front of the editor. And the moment you justify yourself in front of an editor, you are dead.
Yeah, you're losing. Right, you're losing.
Exactly. So sorry, Greg, that I added to your answer.
It's your show.
No, but the question was to you. I just wanted to add details because this is.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
Thank you. Tortugas FM says, I heard you were going to work with Tom King on Batman. Was that real?
No. I mean, I'm friendly with Tom, but no, we never had a conversation of working together.
Okay.
No.
Jafar. Okay. Jafar says, what?
Just a rumor.
Okay. Jafar, greetings from Nicaragua to David and the Master Greg. Nicaragua, Chile, we're having a lot of Colombia. That's good. South America's watching. Yannick Paquet, Yannick again. Greg dropping wisdom is the best way to spend my eardrum while drawing.
Excellent.
Thank you, Yannick. Alex Bulut. Sorry if I mispronounced your second name, Alex. Hi, you too. Thanks for
Germany.
What?
Is he from Germany?
What?
Is he from Germany?
I don't know. Alex Bumbulut. Tell us where you're from, Alex, please. Hi, you too. Thanks for doing this, Greg. Have you ever mentored a young artist? Do you think it's getting harder to break into the industry and work for the big two during these last few years?
I've never mentored anybody. No, I've not done.
You have enough mentoring your kids.
But by my experience, I think it's for me. I would say it's tougher to break in. I mean, because I had the luxury of getting in a car, going to an office, and having somebody look at my stuff and give me some advice. Mm-hmm. And I could do that literally, 3 hours away from me. So for me, it seems a bit harder. But maybe the argument is not, because now you have all these online resources, and which were not available when I was going up. So David probably would be able to speak to that easier than me. I only have my experience, which is decades old now. So I don't know. What have you to say about that, David?
I'd say it's harder because the average, and you said the perfect answer before, so I'm going to use your answer, is that the level of quality in the art these days is much higher. It's the average is
yeah.
When people tell me, oh, the quality of comics is worse, like, no, I'm sorry, I think it's the best quality ever. The average quality of the writing and again, the average of the art and the writing is there when the rest should be here. So almost everywhere you look at, you find, as you said, Ryan Otley. You see Greg, you see Carlos Pacheco, but at the same time, you see the new guys. And so it's the average. Of course, it's more difficult. And there's also a second part, which is the amount of books published by every publisher. Mm-hmm. It's a lot lower than it was 20 years ago. So, mm-hmm. Of course, the opportunities are less. So that's why I keep insisting, if you can, do your own stuff. And they will find you. If you're good enough, don't worry. DC, Marvel, Valiant, Dark Horse, the others, whatever, Image, they're going to come knocking, as Todd did with Greg. He saw the stuff and came knocking. He said, oh my God, this guy is good. So if you're good enough with your own stuff, don't worry, Alex, they will come. As I always say, I use the reference with Field of Dreams, the movie. If you build it, they will come.
The thing is, they recognize, even if you're not, brilliant, they recognize potential. I mean, they're trained to see that. So, yeah. I mean, certainly when they gave me my first gigs, I wasn't what I am now. Not that I'm great. I'm just saying I'm better than I was then. But they saw, where I could go.
Yeah.
And so they see this. I could see this. When I see somebody, when portfolios are brought to me, there's some people I know you will never have a chance of doing this, no matter how much effort you put in. But then there's others that I go, oh yes, this person can easily, they need a little bit of work. Some of them are very close, and you just go, yeah. And so, if you have a trained eye, you can really discern, really pretty rapidly who has the potential and who does not. Yeah. And so, these people who are looking, they'll see you, even if you don't feel you're there yet, and maybe they don't think you're there yet, they might feel that you're worth trying to cultivate because they see the potential in you. Yeah. And but always do your best and make presentations in whatever areas you can. And the more places you can, the more chance you have of being seen, and the more chance you have of being worked. But work hard, because the talent pool is very deep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember, you just reminded me of a conversation I had here with Mark Chiarello. And Chiarello told me exactly that phrase: the trained eye can spot the potential in 2 panels. We don't need 3 pages, 2 panels. True. And then the rest of the pages of the portfolio, you're just checking the things you need to tell the artist to improve on.
Bingo.
So, and that's Mark. If Chiarello tells you that, you're like, okay, Mark Chiarello has spoken. You just go with it.
That's very accurate. Very accurate.
So Alex says, yes, I am from Germany.
So yes, hello, Alex.
So Pedro de Mercader says, I love you, Greg. Thanks for your intense work. That's a good way to define it. It's like, hey, David, that's for me. Hey, David, when are you going to have Todd or Scott in this channel since they've been mentioned so much today? I wish I knew. I'd love to have them someday. I don't know. But this is about Greg today. So move on. Pedro de Mercader, how was it to come back for Spawn so many years after for the third 300th issue? Did you have to readapt your style in any way to do it?
No, actually, it was fun to come back to Spawn because, I had done a lot of Spawn. And, okay, so here's behind the scenes. After I stopped at Spawn at issue 100, I was still working with Todd, but more behind the scenes and, piecemeal stuff, whether it was helping design a toy or a video game or whatever. It's just like I was piecemeal. When he needed me, I was there. I was on salary. And so there's lots of times I wasn't doing anything. But when he needed me, whatever it was, I did it. Mm-hmm. So at one point, he says to me, it was a very horrific moment. He said, Greg, he called me Greg. He always calls me Greggy. Greggy, I need you to come back and do Spawn. And I'm on payroll, right? So I'm like, okay, boss. And then, but I'm dreading it. I'm like, oh my God, I've done so much Spawn. And so then he calls me like a day or two later and he goes, Greggy, or you could do this other thing called, and I said, yes. I didn't know what it was. It was just like, yes, whatever the other thing was. And it turned out it was The Haunt with Kirkman and Ryan and Todd. So there I dodged that bullet of getting dragged back onto Spawn. And then my career went its way. So when it came time for 300, though, now a lot of road is gone between when I quit. 200 issues between. So now it was like, yeah, it's a momentous issue and it's been long. Yeah, it'd be fun. And it was like just putting on old shoes. I've done Spawn. I could do it in my sleep, and it was fun. It was fun. It was great. It was great. And it was great going to the Guinness World Records Award thing with Todd and celebrating privately with his close-knit, on his achievement. So it was really great and wonderful thing to do.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Love from Howard says, some years ago, I saw an illustration you did with Batman and Spawn. Were you preparing for a new crossover?
Well, I did that because there was a new crossover in the works. Todd had actually announced it. I was there in San Diego Comic-Con many years ago and said we were going to do it. And it just never materialized. Whatever went on between Todd and DC, where they couldn't come to any kind of a reasonable agreement, it never happened. And I'm like, if it happened now, it'd be really awesome because now I've actually drawn Batman too. So now I'm like these Spawn Batman artists legitimately. So if it ever happens and I get tapped, I'm pretty cool.
Yeah, and also, Todd is doing most of the, DC toys now.
Yeah.
So, there's another chance. So, DC, make it happen. We want to see it.
Never happened.
DC Comics Sablasi says, Capullo Army in the house.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Stefano Martino, thank you very much for the immense work done in all these years. You're a social inspiration. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, man.
Stefano is also an amazing artist, Italian artist that lives in Spain. Beltenebros GR, is there a comic that you admire a lot, but you can really get how it was being created, meaning that the arc or space storytelling is mind-blowing to you, but can't really get how? I think that he means is there any comic that you're seeing that you admire, but you cannot understand how they made it work?
I don't know if that I certainly at this point, I can analyze things and understand the mechanics behind it. But if I wanted to name something that I admire greatly, I'm a big fan of Frank Millar. His storytelling grabbed me when he was on Daredevil when I was in high school. And I was just like, wow, So Dark Knight Returns to me is like just a masterpiece of work. And which is very different storytelling and the way he talks so in a terse manner. I just, to me, I love that. And and it's literally the comic book that somebody who's never looked at a comic book, I'll go, you have to look at this and you have to give it back. Mm-hmm. And it's so beat up. And and when I first had the opportunity to meet with Frank Millar, or where he was, and I had somebody get up to sign it, they told me Frank looked at it because he likes it when they're beat to shit, and they go, wow, whose book is this? You know, oh, it's Greg Capullo's. And he's like, so I haven't signed it now. It's in plastic and in my drawer. But yeah, it'd be Frank Millar's Dark Knight's Returns. And I can understand the mechanics behind it. But I mean, it's his unique storytelling vision that made that so brilliant. I mean, it's just brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Let me show you something.
What have you got? Oh, yeah, excellent. Good job, man.
This is for my niece, as I told you, an ICU nurse. And I asked him, you know, because of all the sacrifice he's doing.
Yeah.
I asked Frank to do this for her as an homage to her and all the nurses that are fighting COVID.
That's awesome, man.
And Frank was as gracious as Frank is. And literally, I was like, I will pay, you know, as much as I can. And he was like, no, it's your niece. This is COVID. This is somebody that's fighting for us, for our health. And he just did it.
Yeah. Now I can't even believe I'm actually friends with Frank Millar. It's just like, I got to pinch myself.
Same thing. Every time I say, people is like, yeah, no, I don't believe it anyway. I've been friends with Frank for, I don't know, 15 years. I still don't believe it. I'm sorry.
I just have to tell you. So my first time I ever met Frank Millar face to face, we were going. DC had arranged, you know, rented out a bar, and so I'm heading to this party. And there's a little walk up from the bottom floor to the street level in New York. And Frank Millar's walking out with his cane, and Jim Lee's to my left. And I'm like, oh my God, there's Frank Millar, you know? And so I go up to Frank and I say, I'm to Miss Millar. You don't know me, you know? I mean, my name's Greg. Can I shake your hand? And he said, why, certainly. And he puts his cane in, he shakes my hand, and he walks off. And then Jim comes up and he wants to shake my hand. I'm like, the fuck off me, man. Frank Millar just shook my hand. You can't touch my hand. Wipe off the mud. Joe, are you crazy? You know? So that's the first time I met Frank Millar, and I wouldn't let Jim Lee shake my hand afterwards because Frank had just shaken my hand.
Yeah, don't touch me. Don't touch me.
So then the next time I meet him, we were at the Suicide Squad. We were having like a big dinner before the movie premiere. And so Frank Millar comes in. And I'm like, oh my God, there's Frank Millar again. You know, because I'm like this. Listen, I'm just like a fan, right? And I worshiped him, so I was like, oh my God, there he is. You know. And so my wife, she goes, yeah, go up and say hi to him. I'm like, oh, you know, I don't want to bother him, you know. And she goes, go on. I'm going, no, you know, I don't want to, you know. And she goes, oh, Mr. Big Tough Guy, huh? Too much of a pussy to go up and say hi to Frank Millar. You just call me a pussy? All right. And so then I'm like, I'll march right up to Frank Millar, you know? And so anyway, ended up shooting the shit with him. And then after that, we're at a signing at a table at Midtown in New York, and Frank's with me, and Frank won't stop talking to me. And I'm supposed to be paying attention to fans, but Frank won't stop talking to me. So I'm like, I can't believe this is my life, right? And I'm like smiling like an 8-year-old kid. Oh my God! And I'm making him laugh, and he's making me laugh, and my wife's taking pictures, and I'm going, I know I'm supposed to be paying attention to my family. My God, Frank Millar, he won't stop talking to me. And now we're friends, man. So yeah, there's my Frank Millar. So went from worshiping him to now, you know, we're buds and everything, and it's just like I'm beside myself, you know. So I'm as big a fan, you know, as any fan is of me. I'm a bigger fan of a lot of my idols. I mean, it's just like, and I react, man, when I see him. I'm like, oh my God, you know.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, yes, a big fan of Frank, but I'm the biggest fan of Jamie.
Oh, she's awesome, man.
She's amazing. That I can totally see her doing that.
Yeah, she's the best, man. She's the best.
Rafa B, great artist. I know your work since Quasar and X-Force. Kyle Rayner Review says, I have a question. How much of you is in the story of death metal? How much is Scott's?
Oh, well, I mean, the visual stuff is it's all me. You know what I mean? You know, it's very much a collaborative effort. And like David said, do you keep track of who's contributing what? And it's like, no, it just sort of happens. You know, Scott he'll write me something, and I'll illustrate it a certain way. And maybe now I've introduced a motif, and he sees this thing. Well, maybe it's just, you know, a circle, like an eyeball or whatever. And so now we make a circle, a motif. And so it sort of like then he'll start to write to that. And so it very much happens organically. I'll give you an example with Death of the Family. Okay. So Joker, his face is no longer on ice in the Gotham City Police Department. So I said to myself, well, what would happen if it's no longer on ice? It's going to decay. What happens to decaying meat? It attracts flies and stuff, right? So I told FCO, start to make it as the pages go on, make it look shittier and shittier. And I start to make flies buzz around the Joker all the time. And so that started to be a thing, all right? And so then when we got to the end of the story of Death of the Family, now we've led you to believe that maybe the Joker had made it into the Batcave. So now we have Ha show up on the computer screen at the very end of the story. And Scott's like, man, I just need something extra to come up with. If you can come up with anything, I go, I know, I'll put a fly on the screen. He's like, oh my God, that's perfect. So there's an example of it just sort of happens together, and so there's my answer, buddy. It's a collaborative effort. We're both in there.
Yeah, it just flows from him to you and from you to him to make a cohesive stuff, right?
Yeah.
Jafar says, I started to draw comic books seeing the crash course of Master Greg Capullo. It was my first influence in this amazing art. I hope I can meet him in person someday.
Oh, I'd love to meet you.
Arturo Cortez tells you, after he was asking about the portfolio, for my work will start when I try to translate all the stream to listen and understand his Greg's advice 100%.
Good.
Alex Bumbulu says, you two have great chemistry, so cool. Everything is so cool in here. Thank you very much. Just so you know, Alex, a small anecdote. I remember first time we were together in Barcelona, we were just, I don't know what we were doing. We were just being crazy as we are in dinner. And suddenly, both our wives started yelling, you two are like family. You're like cousins. You don't stop. And we were like, why? At the same time. And suddenly we were like, oh, yes, we are.
Well, Alex and I have a good relationship, too. I was feeding him chocolates while he's driving a car. He guested me in Germany.
Yeah.
And so he drove us all over the place, and we'd be on the Autobahn. He'd be driving so fast, and Jamie'd be petrified. So he'd wait until she had fallen asleep, and then he'd open it up. We'd be driving fast, but he loves his chocolates, Alex does. He'll admit to it. And so I'm opening chocolates for him while he's driving, and we had a good time when we were there. We had a good time. And I never ate more sausages in my entire life.
Well, if you're in Rome, like the Romans in this case, in Germany.
He'd say, sausages, which started out great. But after you've had 3,000 sausages, I'm like, a piece of broccoli might be okay.
After the 50th one, you are like, we're in Germany. You guys also have potato salad.
Yeah. No, it's like he brought me out to dinner and I had meat and my side was meat. And I washed it down with a glass of meat.
Oh, that's like when we were in Argentina for Buenos Aires Comic Con Fantavirus, like around 2000 or something like that. I remember I was there for 2 weeks because they did a really strange thing. We was having the convention 2 consecutive weekends with nothing in the middle.
Oh.
But I had to be there for the 15 days since I was bringing the guests. And it was, of course, it's Argentina, meat. And my eyes were just salty, So Paloma was there. And I remember just one day we ran away from anybody saying we are going to just eat whatever, and we were all around Buenos Aires and we couldn't find anything. So we finally get to a place that says Spanish food, and we get in the restaurant just running like, what do you have? They're like, what do you want? Anything that is not meat. Like, this is small salads. Shut up. Give me the salad because I'm gonna die. At any second my heart is going to explode of so many meat. So
we had a great time. Alex was a very good host. Brought us to castles, Holocaust Museum, many bookstores, sightseeing. Beautiful time in Germany.
Okay, that's you see, Greg. When Greg loves people, it shows. So thank you, Alex, for taking so much care of him. Kel Rainer Review says, ha, Greg nailed Todd's voice quite well. DC Comics Speaks This Way says, Greg kind of mentioned a lot of youngsters with brutes and babes and basic training back in the Wizard days. Wondering if you enjoyed that experience and if you would like to do something like that again.
I do like telling people what I know because, it's like one of the cool things of how I grew up. I mean, I had guys like Ramita Sr. and Jim Shooter and all these, experts in their field teach me the craft. And so a lot, trust me, has been forgotten. I talk to editors, and a lot of them are clueless. I mean, I just go, how are you an editor? You don't know this stuff. And so I would love to have the opportunity. I keep threatening, but I'm always busy working, is to put together some books, that people can buy and that have some of the information. And some of course, is going to be redundant. No one's reinventing the wheel, but there's a lot of little bits of tips and advice and rules that people have long forgotten that should be abided by, and share what I know to the next crop of creators.
That could be so amazing. That could be so amazing. It could be an amazing book. Alan Mack, hi from Vancouver, Canada. Hello, Alan. Fernando Elgueta, thank you for the tips and for all the comments you have done with us, the entertainment you gave us every time. I'm reading Batman: The Last Night on Earth right now. Hope you will have much projects or other projects with Batman and other characters. Is there any character you would like to do at DC? Phantom Stranger, The Spectre, The Question, any other?
Man, I think I would do a good job at Lobo. I mean, Lobo is heavy metal, man.
Yeah. When DC, when is that happening? When Greg is free, please make it happen, please.
I like Lobo, and I like Swamp Thing, because who doesn't love monsters? So I think I would do pretty well with both of those characters. Mm-hmm. But if I had my choice, I think Lobo. I think Lobo. I was lucky; I got to draw him a little bit in death metal.
Yep.
And just a fun character, man. And and I love the Bisley. When Bisley got hooked in, to me that's it.
Yeah, people keep asking me what's the comic that you read every year at least once. It's Lobo Paramilitary Christmas Special.
Yeah, Lobo.
I read that special every year. The Lobo trying to kill Santa Claus.
You're never going to do better than Beasley on that book. That's it. If I get on, I'm not going to do better. Hopefully, I do equal. You're not going to beat
well, not until you do it. At least not until you do it. Then we'll talk.
Yeah, because wow, I loved it.
Absolutely. Calvin says, thank you for your answers. Then Maya Bailey says, any interest in crowdfunding or a limited series at Marvel? Yes, he already said that about Marvel. What gets you excited about art these days? What inspires you?
I like the storytelling. I like the storytelling more than the drawing part of it. The drawing part of it, like I said earlier, sometimes I feel pressure, especially with how much talent's out there, and also the more I develop, the more critical I become of myself. So instead of it becoming easier, it becomes even more painful. I'm more judgmental of my work than I've ever been in my life. So that is a hard thing to go through all the time. But the free part of it, we're feeling that way, is laying out the direction, the film directing aspect of it. And so that is always exciting to me. That's what keeps me wanting to come back and do it again, is the directing of it. I do love it. I love the acting. I love bringing emotion and bringing characters to life, how they interact with each other. All that stuff is much more exciting to me than even the most powerful. Of course, I love the powerful stuff, but that part is the part that really thrills me.
Mm-hmm. Arturo Cortez reminds us that we didn't answer the part about do you have to be 18 years old, like adult, to show your work to your portfolio to a publisher?
No, they're not serving you alcohol or bringing you to a strip club. No, if you've got talent and you could kick ass, man, that's all they care about. It's the same with a diploma. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, I got kicked out in my senior year of high school, and I went back and got a GED. Now, somebody else went to art college, but maybe they're not as talented as I happen to be, and I'm going for a job, and he's going for the job at the same place. The guy or girl is going to give you the job. They're not going to go, oh, yeah, this person went to college, this person did, we'll take the college person. No, they don't. Doesn't give a shit about that. They're going to look at what you're laying down. So it doesn't matter if you're young. It doesn't matter if you're old. It doesn't matter if you have a degree or don't have a degree. It depends on what you're laying down. If you're laying down something that they think that is saleable, that they can make money off of, you're going to be in. You're going to be fine. So don't be thinking about that, man.
Yeah. The only reason why an editor could ask you about how old you are is to see the potential.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
I tell you though, I wasn't aware. I talked to female creators. I didn't realize that they do have a little extra challenge in navigating the same waters as I did. Because I sat down with like Marguerite Bennett, who's I call her Sunshine because that Southern Belle is just always, she glows, right? She's got a glow. But sitting down and talking to female creators, they're the ones. That's the only. I would ask if I have breasts. Does that make it tougher, Greg? Yeah. If you have breasts, it might make it a little tougher by some of the things I've heard. But anyway, I don't think age is a factor. Education's not a factor. Talent and perseverance, and not taking no for an answer, and keep pounding on that door until it opens for you. That's what it really takes.
There you go. Karen Review says Fantavirus 1999. I was there, so it was 21 years ago. Oh my God. In Buenos Aires. Your chemistry, guys, is awesome, hilarious. Thank you. We are going to form not a boy band, but we are going to do a stand-up comedy or something like that when we leave comics. And Greg will be the funny one, and I'm the one that you throw stuff at.
We put our heads together. We're going to ass out of ourselves.
There you go. We can act. As you go to a pool, and we put our heads like this, so we reflect. The sun reflects, and we get your sun. So we have that talent. Paula Ventimiglia says, "Jaja, aguante el asado." Oh, so Argentinian. It was 2 weeks now, only meat for breakfast, for lunch, and dinner. Paula, I know you're Argentinian, but I was about to die. It's too much. You guys do too much with that thing. Rafa Guerrero, hi Greg. That is affecting some way your workouts. Oh, he says, does your workouts, your hard workouts, affect the way you draw? With how delicate your penciling is? I'm a muscle worker artist here too.
No, not at all. It's like I used to hear that about it affecting guitar playing too. No, it's never bothered me at all. I mean, certainly I can't have an arm workout and then go upstairs and try and draw because my hand is trembling. But no, apart from that, no, it doesn't influence it at all. Other than I can use really heavy pencils.
There you go. He's the penciler with the heaviest.
Yeah, it's like the size of a horse's leg.
Yes, that's the way he draws. That's how before Greg, he used to do this, and now he just gets something like this big, and he draws like this every time. So he sees why he knows his back so much for that old pose is because he's all the time with the pencil.
That's all I'm told.
There we go. Draw comics the Capullo way. It could be a bestseller. Hear me out, brother.
Thank you.
Arturo says, thank you for answering and seeing so attentive. The thing is that I live in Venezuela and I'm 17 and I've been having ideas to prepare a portfolio. That's why I needed to know the way if you need to be present or to present the portfolio and if you have to be more than 18. No, as we said, talent, perseverance, work. Doesn't matter if you're there. Just show your work in any way you can.
I want to give one little bit more of advice that I give to people who say they want to draw comic books. I said, tell yourself instead that you want to be an illustrator, because let's pretend that comics just disappear overnight and there are no more comic books. Unbelievable, but let's just entertain me. Okay, so you're still going to want to use your talent to earn money. Maybe that's what you want to do. You don't want to put roofs on. You don't want to work in an office. You want to draw. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you just concentrate on becoming a good draftsperson, becoming a good illustrator, then you'll be able to go into other things, maybe storyboards in Hollywood, something else. But if you only focus, only want to draw superheroes, that's only going to serve to limit your options. You know what I mean? You won't be able to go into advertising, or you won't be able to go into these other things. So I say just make yourself a talented draftsperson who's well-versed in illustration. That way you'll have many opportunities, and you could go through one door while you're waiting for another door to open, which is what happened with me. I went into advertising because that's the door that opened before the comic store opened for me. So if I hadn't trained myself to be a draftsperson, good draftsperson, sound draftsperson, they wouldn't have been available to me. So that's my advice. Just make yourself a strong artist.
Yeah, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Many disciplines to be able to survive from one until you get the opportunity in the other, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you have opportunities in advertising or illustration, and then since you have been working and surviving of that, you get the opportunity to do comics, right?
Right.
Okay, so says Fernando Guetta, Lobo, great, that would be awesome. Kyle Rayner says, I would love to see Greg on a Deathstroke run. DC Comics Speedway says, I think Ed McGuinness got in at 17 or 18. Yes, Jay Lee was doing X Factor when he was 17 too. So as Greg said, it's not.
Yeah, well, quit rubbing shit in my face, huh?
Okay. I didn't say that. You forget about that, guys. You know, just was just a drink. Rafa Guerrero says, Greg, where did you get that T-shirt?
This particular one. I mean, a fan of mine made these for me, and actually made them in multiple colors. Even made me a hoodie. So yeah, I don't know. They saw this, the heavy metal symbol, and you see, it's like the bite marks, like Ozzy when he bit the head off of the bat. So this is sort of the perfect combo for me, right? It's metal and Batman together. So a generous fan made these for me and presented them to me in New York City Comic Con.
So, and that's the future. Batman is gotta be that. They need to change it. They need to change it so Batman is metal all the time. I'm just saying, DC Comics, I'm giving you this free advice. The Felipe Rambarri says, Mr. Capullo, you're a great master. This is coming from a true fan. And all of what you're saying is very good advice. DC Comics says, saludos, greeting each other from San Diego, from Venezuela. So we have San Diego, Venezuela, Colombia, Chile, Argentina, Spain, United States. Everybody's saying hello to the master because he deserves it.
Hello, everybody.
So, my friend, we've been at this for 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So you probably need to go back to your life, and I don't want your beautiful, amazing, genius wife to kill me. So one last thing, and I'll let you go.
Yeah.
If you're okay with that. Is there anything that you've been thinking about doing, any project for years and years, saying, not yet, not yet, not yet, I'm not ready, but you are now saying, I'm going to do this before I retire or leave or die, whatever is first. I'm not leaving this world without doing that project?
The answer is Barbie. I just want to do Barbie, a Barbie Ken love story, and that's how I want to ride off in the sunset. And if you believe that, I feel bad for you. No, man, I don't have anything like that, man. I'm not a planner. You know what I mean? Because the one thing I've learned in my years of living is if you could have the best laid plans, and then the life will come in and change them on you. So I just take it one step at a time. Right now, I got this creator on with Scott. After that, it's the Creech. Where that happens, I'm not exactly sure. I have a rough idea, but I don't go too far down the road, man. You could be hit by a bus, a meteor could crash through right now and knock me out, and anything can happen. I don't think that way. I don't plan long term like that, brother.
No, a meteor can come crashing on you. You can get superpowers, and then instead of drawing superheroes, you can be one.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
That could be the perfect ending, right?
That'd be amazing.
Anyway, you guys, thank you all for being here. DC Comics says everybody loves Greg. That's true. And if you don't love Greg, you're not human. You're a piece of shit. that is the truth. Yes, we all love Greg. It's not like everybody loves Raymond. Not somebody that. I didn't love Raymond, but I love Greg.
Thank you very much, guys.
So we're leaving here. Thank you so much, everybody. Greg, please don't cut, because I want to say proper thank you to you after we're off the air.
Sure.
But thank you so much for being here, my friend. Love you, cuz.
Thank
you. You can't imagine how much I miss you, and how much we're dying for you and Jamie to finally meet Erin in person.
Oh, I know. Getting big.
Yeah, in 2 years he's going to be bigger than me, and she's going to just fucking kill me. Or not. Let's hope she doesn't. Mama, please save me. No, anyway, so thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
All of you, you've been amazing. Your questions have been amazing. Your comments have been amazing. Love you all. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, man.
And on Wednesday, we're back with the Spanish creators Teresa Barredo and Pedro Rodriguez. And on Friday, more advice, more learning for you. We're here with Mr. Tom Brevoort, which in some dictionaries is, you see Marvel, and next to it you see the name Tom Brevoort. There's a reason for that. So see you all back on Wednesday. Nos vemos el miércoles. Thank you. Bye. We're off in 3,